Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Nice to see you all people here. In a way, of course, late, but I think I kind of announced that the analysis stream might be a bit later. I didn't expect it to be that late because I still hoped that I would be able to finish my video a bit faster. But my review video, in case you haven't seen it, feel free to check it out. I can maybe link it in chat as well. Because, yeah, I think a pretty decent video considering how fast I had to produce a 20-minute long video. So I'm kind of happy with that. And yeah, of course, you would have to watch it later because now we will, of course, first stream here. Never late. This time I was relatively early on the timer, I have to admit. So probably people thought, hey, I have a good 10 minutes till the timer is at 0, so that means we have round about 10 minutes from now. No. This time I'm here almost in time, I would even say. That's pretty cool. But yeah, what's this? I have to... What did I just deactivate? I don't know. Strange. Whatever. I have to think about that later. So let me see. Yeah, stuff is working. That is also working. No weird things. Looks good. Pretty awesome. Wait, is this professional Chris speaking? I don't know. Do I sound more professional than usual? I don't know. Also welcome Bilbo and Aris Aurelian and Priscilla TV and all the other people that I already noticed here in chat. Even Mr. Bot works because now, as said, I know what to do. Also, Xelion is here. Well, welcome. Nice to see you. It's a game channel. Originally, I covered video games on this channel. I started 2013, and then since 2017 I started covering Tolkien here. And I don't know, it was still games and a bit of Tolkien, then it became Tolkien and a bit of games, and now it's only Tolkien and games are on another channel. I'm not even sure if I have a link. If I have a command for that. Doesn't look like it. Oh, that is interesting. Nightbot is also there. But no, it was not the link I wanted to post. Germans are really into game channels. That is possible, but I think gaming is popular everywhere. Maybe, well, let me just check. TPH Games, maybe? But maybe I hit stuff. Also, Bill was just writing something. If you were a Balrog Maya spirit trapped in the body of a man, and if you were to eat a small number of hobbits, how would you season them? Purely academic, of course. Okay, that is an interesting question already. The Southlands are Mordor now, yes. So spoiler warning is on. But yeah, that's always the case here in this analysis stream. We'll of course talk about the episode. Also Mark Shisa's here as well. Have to assemble a wardrobe. I hope it won't lead to show Middle Earth. But the Sims channels, which gamers do not consider a game, well, I would say it is a game. But of course, among those people who do terrible things, It's really strange. Wait, I have to look this up. I don't have a command for gaming stuff? Okay, I found it. I have a command for that. It's just very different from what I yeah, it makes... What just happened here? Bye bye before dawn. Yeah, it's really sad. There's my games channel. Wait a minute. This link work? It does work. Interesting. Why does it work? Why do I have a branded account? Why do I have a URL shortener for that, but not for the Lord channel? That is strange. I haven't looked in quite some time into the games channel, I have to admit. Like, I simply find never time to do any stuff. Yeah, exactly, it's TPH Games, the games channel. TPH Law is a German channel, and the Philosopher's Games is now the main Law channel, in English, of course. Omka asks, should I avoid Rings of Power if I'm going to read the Silmarillion? That's a really good question, to be honest. I mean, some of the stuff in the Silmarillion, especially the Akalabes, will be in Rings of Power. I would argue you can read the Silmarillion. I mean, if you don't want to know what will happen in Rings of Power in future seasons, then you should not read the Akalabes, the chapter called, also called The Fall of Numenor, and you should not read maybe the Rings of Power and the Third Age. Even though it says Third Age in the name, it also covers quite a bit of the Second Age stuff, so that would be my advice. Besides these two chapters, which are the last two chapters of the Silmarillion, you can basically read anything of that without getting spoiled, I would argue. Not sure if chat agrees on that, but... Though I have to admit, Akalabes is really a good chapter. Like, it's one of the best in the Silmarillion, in my opinion. One of the most fleshed out. Another minute of silence. No, it's not that bad, I think. I'm still surprised that this was even in the show. In a way, it was interesting to see. I'm still not sure what to think of the fall of the Southlands. I also need to make screenshot markers, which I don't have done yet. Let me just do my marker here. Set my marker. That's probably the correct verb. That is the Galadriel. Maybe I should switch the Galadriel marker, else I would get a color for it. I'm not sure how to do it. How do we title it? Here it is. The spoiler. But yeah, it looked pretty cool, I have to admit. Like, I really liked that explosion. There was even a bit of lightning. Lightning in it. Pretty interesting to see. Of course, it's kind of unrealistic that anybody would survive this, but that is a different topic. I feel like it must be survivable because orcs later live there. Yeah, on the other, if you ask, coming back to this what to read question again, you kind of asked it the other way around. Should I avoid Rings of Power if I'm going to read the Silmarillion? So far, I would say not really. It depends on how slow you or how long it will take you to get through it, and the Silmarillion can be a tough read. So if you want to not get, if you don't want any spoilers for the book, then so far I would say there's not much in the show that would spoil you, because it's just very, very vague what is in the show relating to the Third Age. So it should not be really a problem if you are worried about the book getting spoiled for seeing Rings of Power. I don't see any conflict there with the Silmarillion. Really enjoying the show, and I can't wait to see how they get to where we know they have to end up. This kind of fun. Yeah, I'm also curious how they continue. The problem with this show is I always have these mixed feelings about it. Like, for every good thing they do in the show, they do a few things that are not so good, and somehow it evens out all the time. I feel that is really strange. Like, in my mind, it should be relatively easy, but of course I assume making a show of this size is never easy, because you have to coordinate so many people that all have their ideas and want to bring them into the final result of the show. But yeah, it's always kind of difficult. Though I have to admit, I found, like, let's put lore a bit aside as we know it from the books. If we ignore this and see it as some kind of fan fiction fantasy show in a way, then I would say it's definitely enjoyable, but there are definitely parts that could be better, in my opinion. What did everybody think of episode 6? So we could make the classic poll. First of all, we have to do 2 polls. Let's do the important one first. The important one is, of course, no, we do the other second. How did you like episode 6? Or how would you rate episode 6? It's probably better phrasing. I only have 4 options, so we go with 1, 2, 3 again. 1 out of 3. That's bad. 2 out of 3. That's in the middle. You probably get that. And 3 out of 3 would be good. So only episode 6. I'm not sure if there's any big lore offense in this episode. A few small ones maybe, but yeah, kind of interesting. 3 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3. I think I didn't do any typos. So poll is up. Very curious. Now that we can do polls here, I will abuse this feature in a way. I will definitely put some use on it. Very curious what chat thinks. Also, there was somebody who pinged me, right? Would it have been possible for Amazon to continue the story of Middle-earth from where Tolkien left it, instead of going back showing what they already know? That's a good question. I sadly don't know the answer of. I don't think so. I think they don't, because they don't have all the rights. They only have the rights to make a book show adaptation for as a series, right? How is it pronounced? I can't pronounce this word. Drives me crazy. But yeah, they can produce a series out of the rings of out of the Lord of the Rings plus appendices and the Hobbit. So everything that is in that, I assume they can use in theory for an adaptation. I'm not sure if they have to ask for permission to do certain things with that, or if the rights they have are tied to a second age show and they can have to reconstruct everything of these books, but the actual show has to be second age, and that is what they negotiate. I can't tell you that. I assume because a bit of Fourth Age is in the books as well, but I'm not sure if they would be allowed to make like a sequel, because then it would not be an adaptation but something on its own. I'm not sure if they are allowed to do that, because like it probably depends on what is in the contract that they negotiated with the Tolkien estate and I don't know, maybe Middle-earth Enterprise. I'm not sure who they need what rights for. They also trademark things going on. Very interesting to see. Okay, I have to admit I'm very surprised. Like, most people thought it was an okay episode. Some people thought 29% it was a good episode. Only 12% said it was a terrible episode. I would go as far as saying that this must be one of the best episodes that we got so far with this result. Like, over 80% of the people at least found the show okay. Only 12 found it really bad. Waldrek is the star of the show. Yeah, that is true. He put on some good performance here. Yeah, Shadow of Mordor makes, of course, a lot up, but it's not a sequel. It's a prequel that is again in the in the books, in the place between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. But as said, some stuff is mentioned about the Fourth Age, so in theory, maybe they could, but I'm not sure. Very interesting to see, though. Yeah, I said this in one of, I think not in the last review, but in the review for episode 5, that maybe they bombarded us with basically, let's say, mediocre episodes so much that now when an episode comes out that is just a little bit better, it seems actually good. Definitely a possibility. It was definitely heads above other episodes, in my opinion. Yeah, I think why this episode, at least for me, was considered relatively positive, was that Galadriel worked well in this episode. This was, I think, the first episode we ever saw where Galadriel was the main character. She got a lot of screen time and it worked pretty well. You can, of course, argue about some details. I'm not a huge fan of the implication of like romantic relationship or something between Halbrand and Galadriel. I think that is a direction they might go I dislike. I'm not sure if it could be a red herring though. Like it's hard to tell. But I assume I'm not the only one who got like some romantic, for lack of a better term, impression there in this particular one scene with Halbrand. I don't know. Does the show depict Galadriel to have such human-like emotions intentionally, and to show her learning phase and how she hasn't be the wisest, whereas in the books she had like mind-reading powers since childhood. Yeah, I think that's what they are going for. They really try to they really try to set up Galadriel as a main character, and I think as a main character, there needs something to be done about her, if that makes sense. So you need character development in our classic film cosm portrayal. Like Lord of the Rings, especially Hobbit, are also considered like heroes' journeys, and for that you need like to start at a lower point and then show how the character gets better over time and improves in what he does. And I think that is what they want to show in this particular thing. And of course, for this kind of story, it might be needed. Though it's not a classic hero journey, I feel. It's something else, which is really hard to define, in my opinion. So far, it's very difficult to say what this show is actually going to do and so on. Like, I don't know. And yeah, they definitely want to show a very different Galadriel than the Galadriel we know. I think the actress and the showrunners also said this already in some interviews, that Galadriel will be very different, and they didn't lie. So I can't blame them in this regard that they didn't warn us. They definitely did. But it is, of course, a problem. Like, Galadriel is so different to how we imagine her that she feels like a completely different character. And in this case, and we have characters that are not in the books like Arondir and so on, who feel much more elven. Wouldn't have it been smarter to create a new character that is so different compared to a character we already know? Because it's so hard to hook to Galadriel and what she does. But they explore her like really as a character that suffered from war in an emotional and mental way, which makes sense, I think. And yeah, I don't know. Somebody in chat in previous streams said it definitely feels like she has PTSD or something. And people who suffer from that often antagonize everything and see like the enemy everywhere. And that's basically what Galadriel does in the episode. And I feel like, even though I don't definitely agree with how they depict or wrote this character, I felt like if I remove or distance myself a bit from what I know from the books and just accept how it is now portrayed in the show, I have to admit that she feels pretty much like a character that I forgot which scene here. She really feels like a character that makes more and more sense in the last few episodes. Like, she's of course very emotional. There's a lot of emotional burden on her, and she has trouble to process this. That becomes very clear, I think, in the last few episodes. In episode 5, she said it also in the review. She said something like, maybe she asked herself, why would Elrond and Gil-galad exile her and send her? Like, she considers Elrond a friend. Why would he do this? And I think that is why I don't see Elrond's act as sending her to Valinor as a bad one, because in Valinor her mind could actually heal. That is, like, healing is a huge part of why elves go to Valinor. I mean, some not on their own wish when they get killed and something, but also Frodo goes to to Aman, to the West Continent, and there he can find healing for the wounds physically and mentally that he had to endure during his experience in Lord of the Rings. And I think from this context it makes kind of sense that you say there is a place in the world, Galadriel, that can help you. But that is not here on Middle-earth, that is on the West Continent, and you have to probably go there. So from this perspective, it makes sense. And she says that maybe they could not distinguish me anymore from the enemy I'm hunting down. Like, she has become, and in this scene with Adar in this show, which I probably won't find because I don't have set all the markers yet. Is there a scene where we see both of them? Yeah, this one would work. In this dialogue with Adar, Adar also says to her something like, maybe also close the poem while I'm at it. Adar says to her, maybe evil or the darkness of Morgoth has not only turned me into what I am, but also has turned you. And maybe if you're looking for the enemy, you should also look into a mirror. Like, that was, in my opinion, some pretty good lines. Like, I would say Adar is definitely a very cool character so far in the show, and it's nice to see, like, Galadriel was a lot in the driving seat in a lot of dialogue so far, even though she wasn't always successful, and she was maybe too relentless, not very diplomatic. Here, against this particular elf, who potentially, is also very old, even though he hasn't seen the light of the two trees. It's still a very old, inexperienced elf, it seems, or whatever you want to call him. And here she found her match. Like, I feel like when it comes to words, Adar was not impressed, and he could definitely push. And it's still very strange to fully understand this character of itself. Also, Sauron the Dark Lord is here. And in this regard, I felt like Galadriel now definitely had a foe that is probably even, at least is what you call it in English. Oh boy, vocabulary. Oh. I just watched in case people wonder, there is a page called Carbot, and they make little animated cartoons. I just watched the recent episode of the Elden Ring stuff. Let me just think for a moment. What do I wanted to do? I wanted to look what the word überlegen, superior. Now I know it myself. Screw me. He was clearly superior, I think, in this dialogue situation, and that helped. I also should do some stuff here in the background really quick. Okay, that should work. Maybe I can link it in chat, in case people are into Elden Ring. It was like a funny thing, how it feels like when you get invaded. Kind of funny. Watch it maybe after the stream. They also do, like, I don't know, they're known for their StarCraft, little funny StarCraft 2-3 minute cartoon stuff. Kind of funny. Also ignored chat for quite some time. Galadriel is a very aged elf, just waiting for her empathy and her wisdom that eventually comes to her. Yeah, I think that will come later. I think, like, what she says to Adar is that she's very cruel. Like, she wants to really completely destroy the orcs and leave him alive, so he's the last one, and he can see how his basically species, if you want to call it like that, goes to is basically extinct. So that's pretty tough. Anyway, I found this a very interesting thing, because it's kind of a topic also inside the Tolkien universe, that should, like, if orcs should have like an option for redemption, if that makes sense. It's kind of funny in this regard, that they go into this particular topic in a way. Adar in this dialogue also says like that both were created by Eru, by the master of the secret fire, as he calls him. So that is pretty interesting. Rip Coolio, by the way, yeah, rip. Zorg asks, I do wonder, Adar being as old as he is, did they explain why he didn't change into an orc as the others had? thought it seems like he said earlier that he was still in the process of changing or something. Yeah. It is. It's in this regard. It's, I think, not 100% clear if it is. If his process of transformation was simply not completed, if he was like one of the early experiments or so, I don't know. Can Amazon really make Halbrand the Witch King, as they have rights to Lord of the Rings? Is there a possibility? Because I don't know who the Witch King was before being a ring. Yeah, we don't know the identity of the Witch King. What we know about the ring race is that 3 of them, according to the Silmarillion, were of Numenorean race. Let me just see if I can find it in the book really quick. It is said that among those whom he, Sauron, ensnared with the 9 rings, 3 were great lords of Numenorean race. That's basically all we know, and then in another version, in Unfinished Tales, we also get the hint, and that is a bit complicated to explain, that one of the Nazgul had the name the Black Easterling. And he's I think in the version where he's called the Black Easterling, he's not called Khamul, or maybe it's pronounced Khamul, I'm not sure. KH in black speech would be Ch, but I'm not sure if it's a black speech name, so I'm not sure on the pronunciation here. And though it is implied that he has the same basically function as Khamul, but he isn't called Khamul. In another text, he's not called the Black Easterling anymore, but he's called... actually forgot what he's called there in this other version, but he had a different name. Maybe somebody know in chat? What else could he be called? It's not the Black Easterling. Shadow of the East or something like that, right? So it still implies that he's from the East. It's a different version, so you should not mix those up. But it can be implied that that they are basically the same Nazgul, though it's from different versions. And this implies that if he is a Black Easterling, that one of these Nazgul must be an Easterling. We know 3 are Lords of Numenorians, so not Easterlings. Yeah, here I found it in Unfinished Tales. Let me just see. But Sauron did not underestimate the powers. Wait, I need to mark this else I lose the line. The powers and vigilance of the wise, and the Nazgul were commanded to act as secretly as they could. Now, at that time, the chieftain of the ring race dwelt in Minas Morgul, and 6 companions, while the second to the chief, Khamul, the Shadow of the East, abode in Dol Guldur as Sauron's lieutenant, with 1 other as his messengers. So, the Witch King plus 6 Nazgul, 7, Khamul, another Nazgul, 9. And it basically says in the hunt of the ring, for the ring, it says this. Let me just see if I find Shadow of the East as well. Oh, it's in Shadow of the Black Easterling. Yeah, I think it's in a note. And it may be noted that in the rejected version of the present page, that's an important detail, there was only 1 Nazgul in Dol Guldur, not named as Khamul, but referred to as the second chief, the Black Easterling. So there is an older version of this text, which is an important detail in this context, because people often say, yeah, one of the Nazgul was an Easterling. To be 100% precise, in a rejected version, he is called the Black Easterling, implying he's an Easterling. That is not the case for the other versions, so it's not 100% clear if that is true. Of course, in this context, you can also think, is the text from the Silmarillion really canon? We don't know. So, in theory, this, it's always, as always with Tolkien and the stuff that was released after his death, a bit complicated. Also, nice to see you, Rosie Gemchi here. Oh, Tar Elenion Maranwe is also here. Yeah, exactly. Tar Elenion Maranwe just posted it as well. Thank you for doing so. Not loving the Amazon show so far, but loving these analysis videos. They're quite interesting, I have to admit. Yeah, it's always fun to come together and discuss the show, I feel. You can maybe see it as group therapy or something like that. Kind of that. Maybe I should call it episode 6 group therapy or something like that. Would probably get me more views, but it's also a bit clickbaity in my opinion, because I felt like episode 6 was not that bad, to be honest. Yeah, that is true, R.S. Aurelian. The depths of the legacy of John Ronald Reuel Tolkien is a treasure trove of little bits of fantastic seeds for new storytelling endeavors. Group therapy, yeah, exactly. It's kind of that. I mean, it's always like the good thing with this channel and other channels, of course. I just noticed, like, when Nerd of the Rings did his watch party, he had like 2,000 viewers in a live stream. That is massive, by the way, on YouTube, having 2,000 live stream viewers. I think my peak was 400 or so, and I never reached that even close again. So yeah, I felt like, okay, 400 was pretty busy and massive. Good thing about being a bit smaller is that I don't need slow mode or something like that. Internet channels group therapy. Yeah, kind of. Sometimes it's also, I don't know. The group forming in the internet is definitely strong, though. I was on it. I think I saw you there. I was also briefly looking into what he had to say, because I'm always interested what other creators say, and he's very busy, of course, these days. I still have no idea. Like yesterday I decided to, because I had an appointment that day, I decided to not stream yesterday and instead use the time to make the review. And his review is round about the same length as mine, I think even a few minutes longer, and he managed to stream and release his video in the same time I just worked on my video, and I was even slower, though I have to admit I was not at home for some time as well. So in this combination, like, I have no idea how he produces such a long video. I was really lazy in the editing process yesterday. I really tried to, like, it can take you a week to make a video at this length, and just writing it and reading it just took forever for me. It just was a really painful day yesterday. I was really tired. Probably the reason why I also slept quite a bit. Yeah, he watched the episode and did watch party, and then still made his breakdown video. Though I have to admit, one reason why it took me quite some time to, let me just see if I find it, to make my video in the meantime. Was this ring here. Because it's really hard to read what's written on it. And I'm still not 100% sure. But you can imagine that reading stuff like this takes a lot of time when you can't read it. Especially when you're not sure what is written on it. I could only read Plin. It's on the, I think, what is on the ring, in case people wonder. I know people love these details often. Let me just see. There's somewhere a scene where we see his bracer, I think is the name. the thing to protect your arm from the Bogensehne. What is Bogensehne in English, chat? The bowstring, of course, that makes sense. The bowstring, to protect your arm from the bowstring when you're doing archer stuff. At least that is, I think, the functionality of this object. And yeah, on the bracer, that is something written in Kirs. In case people wonder, there are two Elvish writing systems, Kirs and Tengwar. Of course, that was the wrong scene. And yeah, one Tengwar we know from the One Ring, for example. It's kind of funny that that Sauron also used the Elvish writing system for his ring in a very specific mode. But yeah, here is the thing, and this took me a while to figure out. Like, I can't read what this here is. I have no idea. I only read this is an O, this is P. The interesting, the letter that looks like a P is actually a P. It's kind of funny. It's not always the case though, but it's more, I wouldn't call it an accident. Let me just zoom in so you can. Oh, I screwed up. Let me just move this. So this is a. Oh, I also got a message which I need to check in a moment. What is going on here? Very strange. My mouse cursor just decides to do. Okay, wait a minute. But yeah, this is whatever. This is a P, this is an L. This I assume is an I, which also looks like an I. This is an N, this is the same letter again, another N. I don't know what that should be. It could be, let me think, is it an E on A? I'm not sure what this is. Maybe it's an A, or an E, I think. This here would be the A. No, this is the E, this is the A. A, this letter here, I don't know. Is this the same as the I here? Is this here belonging together? Or is this belonging together? This would be then an E and an L, and Elvish words ending on E and L is very common. So that is strange. This here, though, this part here I can't really make out. But plin, there's a fan invention of the word plin. It's Sindarin and means arrow. So arrow, O could be, I don't know. I think it could be an imperative particle or something like this. It could also mean about or above. What is before that, I can't tell you. But it's always interesting to look at this. Interestingly, this section here you also can see on the ring that he wears. So arrow is also written, and since it has to do with archery, arrow makes kind of sense in the context. So I would go. In Quenya, it's pilin. I'm not sure if it's a form, but maybe it's also feline. But feline could be a form of that. I'm not sure. I think Quenya has less vowel mutation stuff going on. Okay, now it works. It's strange. What a disgusting language. I think it's a pretty cool language, to be honest. This here, let's see if this is an A and this is an I and this is an E and this is an L, then it would be IL. I couldn't make any sense out of that word. I have no idea what it means. I'm not in Sindarin, not in Quenya, which should be the languages to be expected on this here. Like, there was some stuff I tried to figure out which had to do with the word. I mean, it could also be like the moderator suggested maybe this is an N here somewhere, but I don't see the N, to be honest. I don't know, but yeah, maybe it's a form of to be. Then maybe it's something like be the arrow or something like that, or become the arrow. I don't know, but What did I miss? Welcome, Rosie. Nice to see you here. We just discussed the Adar section and the dialogue a bit with Galadriel, which I thought was fantastic in my opinion. Really highlight of the show. I also just noticed that my in the thumbnail the analysis writing is a bit too low. It should be a bit higher. Whatever. Not that big of a problem. Speaking of the thumbnail, that's also something I want to ask regarding this. Yeah, now we look just in some details like the what is written on the arm. And I explained, this took me a long time, like, this part here is the clear part. Oh, you can't see it. This part here is what is clear to me. Plin means arrow. What this here means, I don't know. Ayel, or something like that. This is most likely an E and this is an L. I mean, could this be a different letter? I don't know. It's strange. However, the word plin is also not a word Tolkien ever used. It's a fan word that is formed out of pilin, the Quenya word for arrow. But I think it kind of makes sense. Oh no, we didn't look into or discuss the Adar planting seeds. I mentioned it previously, or in my review. But while we are talking about producing videos and stuff, let me just think for a moment. Yeah, this particular thumbnail that you currently see, I'm currently experimenting with, like, I don't know, with some new, let's call it designs. My moderator also suggested a very cool logo design for the channel, which I kind of like. I have to look into this, but yeah. Basically, the only new part is at the top left corner of this image here. I'm not sure if you kind of like... I know a lot of channels do something like this, like a geometrical form in the corner, like I don't know, Lord of the Rings has this inverted circle. Some have like a little box with their logo or some channel name in it. Some have like I don't know, a circle in the corner, stuff like that. And so yeah, I wasn't really creative when it comes to that, but I feel like it's relatively efficient doing something like this, and it's easy to do. So I decided to also experiment with it. Maybe we could make a poll and ask people if they like that. I'm still thinking of also changing the font type of the text in the thumbnails, but yeah, that doesn't have to matter too much. Do you like the new thumbnail? Question mark. Let's call it a prototype, because there might be further changes to it. It's not final yet. I just experiment currently a bit with it. Should it be TPG? Yeah, I think TPG would be a bit too long, if that makes sense, because I just don't want to have it have too much, you know, space clutched. Maybe I can make the TPG. Don't change the font type, please. Okay. It's very simple font type. It's simply, I think, Times New Roman. What I like about this font type is it's designed to be easy to read. And I think it fulfills it. Kind of like its proportions. It's not very creative though. Yeah, that is true. But I'm just curious if people like stuff or not, because I have this style now for several years, and sometimes it feels like maybe change stuff a little bit. What I like about this particular design thing is that for example, for live streams, I could make the background, let's say, red or something like that. You know what I mean? So people know when they see a thumbnail, oh, it's red, so it's a stream. Oh, it's blue, so it's a lore video. You know what I mean? So you could experiment a little bit with that. I kind of like that idea. Yeah, probably pleasant to read is probably also better phrasing for it. It's designed to be pleasant to read. that you can read long texts without being annoyed. There are some texts that are good for like a headline, but if you have a whole text written in them, it becomes annoying. But yeah, something like that. The problem is when I would add another letter, like let's say good evening, Geir, nice to see you. If I would add another letter to it, I would need to make like to get this size, because on YouTube when you make a thumbnail you always have to consider that on some devices this thumbnail will be very small and people still should be able to read it or recognize at least the symbol or whatever. So it can't be too small, but I also don't want to clutter too much of the space. You know what I mean in the thumbnail. So and usually I go with TPG and or TPH, something like that, or TPHG. PG makes more sense, Philosopher's Games. We could change it, of course. PG could also work, but yeah, I don't know. How long of a vacation will you take after the show is over? I don't know. I think the problem is the following. After the show is over, holiday season basically is starting, and these are the months in the year with the best ad revenue. So I can't take a vacation there. I will maybe make a vacation January or something like that for a few weeks, definitely, because I felt I earned it. But yeah, let's hope. I at least hope the channel will perform well. Like, views this month were the best views I had on my channel ever, so that's pretty good. September was a really good month, as to be expected. Still, yeah, I often discuss the YouTube stuff here a little bit. What concerns me, at least distantly a little bit, is that only my old videos get all the views. Like the Who is Elrond videos 1 and 2 were getting a lot, like really a ton of views, but not all of them. And most of my newer videos, for example the Galadriel one and so on, is not getting, like, it's not terrible, but could be perform a bit better. Like, I have live stream VODs with better view performance and some of the videos I made that always, yeah, YouTube is a bit annoying. I feel like it's a bit unfortunate that it seems like you have X amount of people that are interested in lore content, and then very unfortunate if they push only, if YouTube only pushes the biggest channels. I feel like they should, like, I don't mind that the bigger channels get big views, don't get me wrong here, but it's kind of extreme. If I look at some other channels, and look at their view increase, and look at my channel, and look at some very, very successful channels right now, and it feels like YouTube is explicitly only promoting like 3 channels or so, and the rest is also sees an increase in views because there's simply more traffic in general, but it's I feel like not really well balanced, if that makes sense. And of course I don't mind if other channels get more views if their work is significantly better than mine, but sometimes I feel like my work is at least not that much worse that like, I don't know, that some channels get like 300,000 views in a day and I get 3,000 views. Like, that is very frustrating, I have to admit. Even though it's not the fault of the channel owners, don't get me wrong here. It's just, I feel like the YouTube algorithm could be a little bit more generous. And YouTube does some stupid stuff, in my opinion. Like, for example, some channels, what I do is, for example, pretty stupid. Like, it would be smarter to make these streams on a separate channel. So I would keep the big performance videos on my main channel and only do the streams on a separate channel. Because when you do videos that don't perform so much, you potentially negatively impact the overall performance of your channel. That is stupid. YouTube should never punish you for putting out a video. That is, in my opinion, like, I don't know, absolutely stupid, but that is sadly the YouTube age matter we live in, and it's really frustrating. I found you through Men of the West. Nice that you found your way, so welcome. And yeah, I know a lot of people, like Men of the West has a big channel, but of course the biggest one, Nerd of the Rings, was also a guest a few weeks ago here on the channel when we discussed episode 3, I think. But yeah, it's really stupid. Some do have a good bit more subscribers as well, though, don't they? Or is it with channels that have compatible sub numbers? It's of course true that some channels have more subscribers. That makes, of course, a huge, very, very big difference as well, because when they upload. But I know what views roundabout the other channels have and how big their increase is. And I can tell you the increase on some, like on, for example, Nerd of the Rings channel is really impressive. Like, it's completely ridiculous. Like, his channel grew so much in this month. That is really, really, really sick. And to be honest, I can't complain too much. Like, it feels stupid to complain if you also have the best months on your channel in your life. But my problem for my channel is always to get subscribers. I don't know what it is that people don't like pressing the subscribe button on my videos. I assume a reason could be I make very long videos and people listen to it as a podcast or something, or when they go to sleep. And doing so, they potentially have a playlist, or I don't know, then the next video plays, I don't know. So they just rotate, they watch my video for a few hours because I have insane watch times on some of those videos. Like sometimes, like I have some VODs that wait a minute, I can't show it to you. I have one VOD of a stream from a year or so ago, and it has like 1.5 or almost 2 hours average view time duration, which is very long. Like, on some people start the video, don't like my voice, and just shut it off and go on with the next video or so. And there are people that watch this video on average. And not there are people. On average, this people is watched for, I think, 1 hour 40 or 1 hour 30, which is absolutely absurd. And to this day, it's one of my most seen videos. Like, it gets a lot of views all the time. It's really surprising. Kind of strange. But yeah, watch time is always a problem. I'm subscribed. Yeah, I know. I assume most people here are subscribed to my channel, so it's preaching to the choir. But it's kind of strange when you see like a lot of views on some of your videos, and you make very little subscribers all the time. To just put it into perspective, which is so strange to me. I had months that performed worse than this month here, like September. And in those months, I would say I had twice the amount of subscribers. So there are months where I got more subscribers than this month, though I had far less views. And my average view duration is really high on my channel. So I don't know. It's kind of, it's really frustrating for me as a creator, because I want to have a big subscriber base to get more consistent results in uploading a video and predicting performances of video. For me, it's always like a gamble. I have some videos that suddenly get 200,000 views. I have some videos where I, like the Galadriel one, that struggle to get 10,000 views or so. It's just weird. Maybe it has the time. I don't think so that is the case, because the problem is not getting the people to watch my videos. The problem is to get people to press the subscribe button after they watched a video of mine for over an hour. That is the problem. For me personally, I don't mind that people are like. You could argue the problem is my content is too niche or so, but some videos get the views, but people still don't get the press the subscribe button. You know what I mean? Yeah, YouTube is weird in this regard. The problem is simply the metric makes no sense for me, and I don't know what to do. I could, of course, I hate it at the beginning of a video or in the middle, say, oh, by the way, if you haven't subscribed, maybe press the subscribe button. I hate doing this. I usually put it at the end of the video, which is probably my mistake, but I still, yeah, it's still unfortunate for me, I feel. Yeah, I would, Rosie, I would think the same. If I listen to something 1.5 hours, that I would press the subscribe button. Like, that seems to be kind of cool. Yeah, I know the problem. I think I had not a single month where I really lost subscribers overall, but I always gained like a few. Some people unsubscribe for reasons unknown, like they don't like the content you're putting out. They, I don't know, found a better channel that covers the same, whatever. It's not a problem, but usually you always get the stuff going. By the way, to just end the poll here, it seems 86% really liked the new design. That's new design. That sounds a bit too much. Like the little triangle at the top left. So it seems we maybe keep that. Though I might experiment with colors a bit. My moderator suggested to maybe make it black to fit my overall style of the channel, but as said, we might experiment a bit with other colors. Maybe I may even make a little logo change or so. We will find out, but it's probably after the show is covered. Every 20 minutes. And the problem is, I think in these live streams, most people here should be subscribers anyway. I like the old thumbnails too, but the new is cool. I mean, it's not much change. It's basically the same style. I made the text a bit smaller this time because I've always felt like it eats too much space in the thumbnail. Just making traditional maps live on stream, basically. Yeah, Wicked Eye Studios. I agree. The color based, depending on content. I could make a little feedback, need for feedback video where I explain this or so, and maybe ask people for feedback for this. Be right back again. Okay, Rosie. I mean, it's kind of strange. Like, some people often complain, or not complain, but ask, why do YouTubers consistently say the stupid line, yeah, and if you like the video, press a like button, maybe leave a comment, and I don't know what. The reason for that is it makes it statistically significant difference if you do so. I had a time where, for example, my Gandalf video, I don't say subscribe and do the YouTube stuff, I think. Because I always felt it's stupid. People should be able to know, but it seems you really have to remind the people to do the YouTube stuff. And it's not clear, of course, because from the other side of the perspective of a viewer, it's you watch the content, you maybe like it, and you move on with your life and have a good day. And that's, of course, totally fine. But the engagement for us creators is just so important to get these comments, to get these likes, especially, and subscribers are really important because they kind of define your range. My range is very dependent on mercy of YouTube, if you think about it. It's Please wire me some money. Yeah. It's just the reminder is sadly really needed. But I don't want to, like, in my vision of content, it would be in the way of the actual content. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's meta in a way, you know? It's not part of the actual stuff I want to say, so that's why I put it at the end. So now the video is complete. If you have watched to this point, maybe press the like button and so on. But yeah. Yeah, comments especially matter. That's why I always mention them. I also like the. Have we started the? Yeah, we talked a bit about the Galadriel dialogue and that she started yet, but I got distracted by other topics. Also, I have a message I need to answer because I have to. I have another appointment today. Because Dan, Voice of Geekdom, invited me today to discuss episode 6 with him. Not sure if there's another guest. Probably, yeah, there is another guest. I'm not sure who is the other guest, though. Let me just check myself. Oops, something went wrong. Oh. Oh no, should I not? I just killed my thing here. We should maybe focus a bit on the episode. Is it possible the link is not working? Strange. I don't know why the link isn't working. I'm doing in deep, yeah, like he's also a fantastic creator. You have a lot of good creators these days, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I'm a guest with Voice of Geekdom, so I have to finish the stream in 2.5 hours. Then I have to be on Geek Zone stream. Oh, links works for you. Awesome. Two and a half hours. Yeah, that should be plenty of time. We're already streaming a bit. But yeah, I think people don't want to hear me rambling about the YouTube stuff, but about the actual episode. So we return to that in a moment. But yeah, I gotta go in 30 minutes. Yeah, currently I'm full timing my channel. Let's see if this stays this way, but currently it kind of works out for me, but stuff could also be better, I would say. I'm finished building the damn thing. Giving me thank you for keeping me entertained, distracted. No problem. But yeah, YouTube stuff always complicated. But as said, we should maybe go back to the episode. Just a little distraction here. So for 20 minutes ago, somebody said we maybe should talk about the seeds of Adar. And yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the review already. I kind of like this scene, I have to admit. I hate it when I don't... there it is, found the frame. So yeah, Adar puts in some seeds into the ground. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting idea. Like, he says something... The seeds, interestingly, look also like the Alferin seeds that we have seen in previous episodes. So I like that it doesn't come out of nowhere, but that this topics on plant seeds was established before. And that they plant them because, before a battle or so, because battle always means that people potentially die. So they basically plant new life, as Adar says, in defiance of death. And I'm not sure if the others see this or whatever, if his orcs companions know what he's doing there. It seems to do this a bit outside. But it's an interesting scene that was kind of easy to miss. But later in the show then, with Arondir and Bronwyn, it's explained again that they have the... that they like this tradition is explained. I kind of like that the show later explains this, and they had this Alferin seed part again. Then they also used the Alferin seeds, or I think it was the seeds Arondir had with him, to close the wounds of Bronwyn and so on. So this particular part had like a very important thing in many different ways. They were used, like. And in one episode, they were a gift to somebody else. Then in another episode, like in this particular episode, we have this elven tradition of planting them before the battle starts, like as an elven culture thing or sin. What is interesting in this context is that Adar, as a character, is of course, what's it called? He is a Moriquendi, so one of the elves that has not seen the light of the trees, I assume, because if he was captured very early in the First Age, he must be insanely old. And that, of course, volcanic soil can be very fertile, I agree. And so in this context, he's maybe also related to the Sindar elf. I mean, in theory, he can be really related to all the elven clans. He could be a Noldor, he could be a Sindar, or a Teler. He can't be a Vanyar elf. He has dark hair that would most likely hint at him being maybe from the Noldor clan. It really depends on when he was captured. But as said, depending on versions and so on and so forth, this must be a long time ago in a place called Kuivjenen, I guess, or roundabout. Definitely a possibility. So here's my First Age map, and the elves awoke here. Then they went on the journey and so on, or they lived there for some time. Then they went on the great journey to go to the west continent Aman. And in this context, it's kind of fascinating that he could be from this time. And I don't know, it's a very interesting idea that he's so old. And it seems like this tradition then is also very, very old. And it's a kind of an interesting thought, I feel. Even though it's not mentioned in the books, to my knowledge. Maybe somebody in chat knows this better than I am. Yeah, that is so true. Like, if it happened in the context of battle, it should be a later tradition. Because the concept of getting slain in battle only developed when people were killed by orcs and so on. The question is, when was the first recorded battle against orcs by the elves? That's a really good question. That could be really, really late. So maybe in this particular context, because he knows Beleriand, it seems. I'm not sure from which side though. Either from the side of Morgoth or from the side of the elves. But that's a really good point. Like, if this particular tradition is a battle tradition, then the first battles against the orcs were in Middle-earth when the elves reappeared. During the journey there was no fighting. And the fighting against Morgoth in the War of Sake for Elves, I think the elves didn't take part in. You could maybe argue the elves fought maybe whatever creatures they attacked them early on or so, potentially a possibility, but I feel like the first battles, like there was a very long period of time where the elves were free from battle. So it's a very good point that you make, that this must have happened then much after. If this was the case, then he was potentially not one of the very first orcs. However, the when were elves captured and timeline thematic is of course very complicated when you don't have the full rights to the Silmarillion. As a result, I would argue that maybe they can't, in the timeline of the first age of the Rings of Power show is potentially pretty much, how to phrase it, very different from the timeline we know from the books, and very hard to tell. From the book's perspective, though, that's a very good point against this particular argument, that he is very old and one of the very early elves. But because if he knows his tradition from battle, then he should be from the time when the elves lived still on Middle-earth. Again on Middle-earth, which was the last 590 years of the First Age. And then he was captured in Beleriand or something like that. Kind of interesting. I don't think Adar is Sauron. I would say the only possible theory is that Sauron split into 3 different beings, and one is Halbrand, one is the Stranger, and one is Adar or something like that. If that is true, then maybe, but from the stuff we've seen so far, there's not really a reason to think that he might be Sauron, I feel. Yeah, that is... no, I get it. So, therefore, planting seeds for new life, when the new life will never have a chance to grow, like a bad omen. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, the orc thematic Umka is kind of interesting. So he asks, do you like the orc design and the fact that they burn in the sun? They don't seem to have any issue when carrying Pippin and Merry for days to Isengard. Maybe the orcs burn in the sun. So the point with the orcs is that some, like, later in the Third Age, roundabout, I forgot the exact date. I think the first time the Uruk-hai appear is 2500, something like that. They appear in Minas Morgul the first time, I feel. And this time, and this is a specific orc breed, the Uruk-hai, that has less trouble in the sun. And those we also see, of course, in Isengard. So there were some, I think, normal orcs with them as well. And those also don't burn. Like, the burning is, in my opinion, here in this show, a little bit excessive. Like, they definitely exaggerate this problem. In the books, I always got the feeling that the orcs were more... how to phrase it? Let me just see if I can find the right episode here. the orcs were just weakened in the sun, but they would not start smoking, like or start burning. Here we have this scene here in the last episode. Found it. Yeah, exactly. They're weakened. They're not as fast, not as strong anymore in the sun. But it's not like they can't be in the sun here. Maybe the showrunners make an argument that this early. I still assume we are early in the Second Age, and as a result, I assume that these orcs are more or closer to still the darkness of Morgoth or so, and that's why they maybe behave a bit differently. I don't know. But in theory, it makes very little sense. I'm not the hugest fan of that they start burning, but that the sun has an effect on them makes totally sense. It's just a bit too extreme in my opinion. But of course, the orcs getting weaker in the sun is so vague like if you have in a film adaptation, you need to show this somehow. So it makes kind of sense to maybe exaggerate it a little bit, but I guess it's a bit too much. Yeah, exactly. They have to make a visual. But overall, the orc design I really like. Like, they look really, really scary. And that is pretty nice to see, I have to admit. The problem is in Ervil that it's possible that they play these mind games with them. I agree, he's definitely playing maybe games with them. The problem is, why would he play the games when Galadriel and Halbrand are not around? Because he also never really reacts when Waldrick asks him about Sauron, where he is, what happened to him, if he is Sauron, and so on. And he kind of denies this, in my opinion, in the last episode. He seems angry that he called him Sauron, and his reaction felt like from a filming perspective more like, okay, it was a denying reaction onto this question, that he didn't like it. Else, why would the scene be in the show, right? I mean, you could say maybe to deceive the audience, but why would he deceive Waldrick and the orcs and so on? Makes no sense. Yeah, Uruk-hai means orc folk. It's like it's still considered like in the context of orc folk, it's a specific kind of breed though. With like a black skin, and are they described? And we know that they appear like a few times in the Lord of the Rings as well. But there's a mention of greater, stronger black orcs, the Uruk-hai, and we know this from they don't like, it's not like Saruman invented them. Sauron invented this particular breed and had it available, or the Witch King had it available. But yeah, it's true. Like, it's kind of interesting to see though that though Adar seems to be or feels very close to the orcs, he still has this elven tradition going on that he still honors in a way, which I find interesting that he does this. That definitely says something about his character, and it was a scene that was for the audience. It was not for the orcs or for anybody. It was more for the audience. He also basically is aware of that, his goal to basically darkening Mordor so that the orcs would not have to fear the sun anymore in Mordor, is something that also will have an impact on him and that he will miss the sun and so on. So I thought it was a pretty cool scene that we had last time with him. If Adar can be redeemed, really hard to tell what they do with his character. I feel like they have a lot of ways dealing with this particular character again, simply because how to phrase it, like, he's a cool character. It seems like he's one of the, like, really a fan favorite so far, and the actor is absolutely fantastic. Obviously, he's a very good actor, and he sells his character quite well, and it's so far quite interestingly written. So he has some compassion for the orcs, which is also something we never see. Like, Sauron never feels like he cared much about the orcs, and they were bent to his will, and they had no other choice, and they had to follow it. And here they have now a leader that actually cares about the orcs and sees them as his children. In this motive, it makes sense that when Sauron starts doing his experiments and sacrificing many orcs, that Adar doesn't like it, because that makes sense in context of his character. So yeah, Sauron is a jerk, kind of. And in this context, I feel like it makes sense that he maybe has tried to kill Sauron or something. So what he says makes definitely sense in the show, and it seems plausible within the confines of his character, if that makes sense. Though I'm not sure if he if he would be able to kill Sauron. I still can't wrap my head fully around that particular detail. At least we know the leaks that Adar is the brother of Galadriel is another film. Yeah, that is not true. Like, the leaks are a bit too. You have to see them with a grain of salt. I also don't like. My prediction, and I'm not the only one. It was, in my opinion, not a tough prediction. That he is one of the original orcs was pretty. I said this was also my theory, and I was not the only one. Like, I think pretty much every channel had this theory. Nobody really liked the he is Maglor or he is Maeglin theory. Some liked this theory, of course, and found that an interesting thought. I was not a fan of those, so it was not my theory. Sorry for all the people who liked the theory, though, but so far it seems to be not the right one. Yeah. Ixalion says, Adar is the best character. Yeah, really like him a lot. He implied he wanted to become a god in the earlier episode. That is true as well. The question is what he means by that. The world has to be changed. I think that is a theory I have, though, that even though, and we talk about the stupid sword in a moment, but I think the sword is not only a key. I think it has more function. Currently, it's just a MacGuffin to get the water unleashed. And I really have to I said it in my review as well. I think that is absolutely nonsensical and really stupid, but I don't know what people think about that. We'll probably discuss this in a moment as well. But I think there might be more to the sword, because what he says there with becoming a god is and remaking the world. Like, Sauron also wants to heal the world, and he says, like, the dialogue, the stuff they say in the Galadriel questions Adar section. Let me just see if I find the screenshot again. Let me guess. Yeah, I did not make a thing here. Come on, Mr. Screenshot. That kind of works, I guess. In my program, I can place markers in case people wonder what I'm talking with markers all the time. And that helps me in my program to find the scene fast. I have basically the complete episode as a video file on my hard drive. And I use that to get basically every possible screenshot at once. I just need to, of course, mark the things. I have to do this. It also helps when you name those markers, so that's what I'm currently doing. Let me find a better screenshot. And yeah, I have to basically go through the scene and find like a short scene where we see both Galadriel and Adar, so I can give you the representation. At the same time, I can't show you my searching process on screen, else my video gets claimed, so I'm always on the edge of getting into trouble here. This one I was looking for, finally. Also, there was a lot of comments here that I just ignored for a moment. The rings were made circa second age 1600. Yeah, 1600 roundabout was when the one ring was specifically made. I would argue a few of the other rings, maybe also the lesser rings, were created a bit earlier, but roundabout that time is of course right. I'm pretty sure he should survive till season 2. Yeah, I mean, it is possible, like Hello Future Me suggested that Adar might be just a season 1 bad guy, but now that he escaped again, I'm not so sure about that, but I agree, it could appear in episode in season 2. I'm not sure how episode, like, when they kill Adar, they need to build up a new bad guy, a new villain. And he's a very interesting one, and quite some time now in this episode went into this villain to portray him. If they would kill him now, early on, I feel like all their setup would be for nothing. And this is really a needed setup because you need a good villain, and so far he is a good villain. So he's at least a very interesting character, and it's not even clear if how bad he is. I mean, he just let Waldrick kill Rowan, so he can't be like how much you can trust his judgment and his ideas. He's also kind of crazy, I would argue. I'm just reading Brother Matthew's writing like quite a few comments, just skipping over them. Doesn't the thieves Numenor obtained immortality on Valinor? Destroy Numenor. And the problem is, why I think that what would be strange if Halbrand is Sauron is, first of all, he puts on an act when he's alone that makes no sense. I feel like he's really deeply conflicted, or they changed Sauron quite a bit. That is a problem with him. And another detail I'm also conflicted about is that that he was already in Numenor and he has to return. And now it seems like I'm not sure if he will return to Numenor anytime soon. And if he does, like, I don't know. You're also thinking from the perspective, will they reveal that Halbrand is Sauron to the viewer at some point and the characters don't know? Or will everybody know? Because then they would be aware of him, and we still need... The rings are, in my opinion, not forged yet. So the rings of power. As a result, I still don't fully see it. And in theory, he needs to be in Eregion as well and help and deceive the elves. So that, I don't know, like, there's a lot of stuff Halbrand needs to do then. And I don't fully see that happening, except they would drastically change the story. so much going on in chat, so maybe somebody has a question or important comment, feel free to repost it, because yeah, I'm always a bit behind here. Also, Sasha asks, if orcs were elves, do they return to Valinor, to the halls of Mandos, when their spirit leaves their body? I think Tolkien disliked the idea later on and didn't like this version for the orcs. Yeah, that is definitely the problem with it, right? Like, in theory, you are right. The orcs, I mean, you only return to the halls of Mandos when you were summoned. But if you do evil things, and some of the orcs for sure did evil things, you are not even summoned. So as a result, the orcs would stay as spirits on Middle-earth forever and have no way of redemption from this perspective, even in this version. So you could kind of solve it. I think the biggest problem with the elves as orc origin is that orcs would be like, how do they lose their immortality? That is a big problem. And I feel like, in addition, elves are portrayed as very pure beings, and if you change them too much, their spirit will leave their body and they are gone. So it's kind of difficult to imagine how Morgoth could have transformed the elves into what they are. It seems to be very difficult to explain, in my opinion, context of the elves. It made sense earlier in his writings, but as Tolkien progressed his ideas of the elves further and further in his more metaphysical writings, I feel like the idea of elves as origin for the orcs made less and less sense. So he switched it to humans, but for that he needs to move the humans, the birth of the humans, a couple of thousand years back into the past, close to the birth of the elves, or to the awakening of the elves. And that he of course struggled with. But it's a really complicated topic, as you can probably imagine. Also, didn't I want to write a message here? Yeah. It's nice to see, like, a good show always needs a good villain, and I think Adar is a good and interesting villain. That is pretty good. Also, there was a question from I don't know, couple of minutes, 10 minutes ago. Kyladriel. Yeah, the Sword Hilt thing is definitely Star Wars Episode 9. I agree on that. But I think there could be more to the Sword Hilt. I think there is more to it. Maybe Sauron is conflicted. He was betrayed by his own men. Maybe he wanted to return to Valinor and await judgment, but Galadriel opened a new window for him. Good stream. Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. But you gotta go. Yeah, I think, as you said, you were streaming as well, so much fun with that. Maybe check Priscilla's channel. The question is, could Morgoth remove their immortality? I don't think he could. He can, of course, change existing stuff, but he would have to change the very nature of an elf. And I don't feel like that this might happen. Like I said, and Tolkien wrote later some versions where, for example, if you would that elves couldn't be transformed that easily because they always had the option to basically that their spirit leaves their body. That's what, for example, a strange section about relatively grim topic of rape. Like, if you would rape an elven woman, her spirit could leave her body, and she could basically die before that even happens. In this context, you could argue this might also apply for physical pain or something like this. Of course, the elves could maybe endure this for some time, but I feel it might be strange in this particular context to get too grim on elves without the "I just leave here" option, if that makes sense. And I don't think Morgoth has had the power to circumvent this, even though he was, of course, very early on much more powerful as an entity, because his power wasn't spread that much. But still, I feel like it's complicated in that regard. I mean, Tolkien for sure didn't like the idea, else he would not have tried to find other solutions for it. The problem is, or the status quo, you could say, is just that we have no other option that fits to the lore we have. And that is why it's often worded very carefully. Like, even in the Silmarillion, it said the wise of Erisea believe it is like that, or they say it is like that. It's not like, yeah, that is 100% a fact. It's just, okay, we have to explain it somewhere, and it's just an obscure mystery in the lore of Tolkien. Nori Brandy for the Sauron in deep cover. I think Poppy is Sauron, because have you ever seen Poppy and Sauron at the same time? I don't think so. So she's definitely a candidate for that. Maybe also the horse is Poppy. Not Poppy, is Sauron. It's an interesting idea if an evil spirit went into the body, but I think that would be a bit too much. In theory, I guess, why not? Yeah, in some later writings, Tolkien, as Tar Elenion Maranwe says, that orcs were short-lived compared to men. But yeah, if we then take the Hobbit, Bolg, the son of Azog, or Azog, is like 100. He's very old. If you put the orc dates into context, that makes it kind of difficult to see. There are even some, like, in a lot of classic versions, it's also never explained how long an orc lives, interestingly. So there is, if you ignore some of these later writings of Tolkien, then you could come to the conclusion that orcs are even immortal. So it is difficult. Like, Tolkien later clarified this in a text, but you have to always keep in mind that when we come to later writings, the whole writing corpus. Do you say it? Is it called corpus in English? I don't know. But the whole body of writing, but the whole mythology Tolkien wrote, also changed in this time, and Tolkien had different ideas for it in different versions. And then it's very difficult to insert these later ideas of Tolkien into earlier writings he had, because his mindset was simply different. That makes combining this very, very difficult, and make very specific statements. Like, of course, we know from a later writing where Tolkien wrote, orcs are not immortal. They have a relatively short lifespan. I think they are also they can also get diseases and or get sick and stuff and like that. Kind of interesting, but you have to keep in mind this might have been different. And when we come to The Hobbit again, this was written much earlier, and was later put was written 1937. At this point, when The Hobbit was written, Mithril as a name didn't even exist. Galadriel did not exist. So you always have to keep in mind the context of the writing process as a whole. And Tolkien never completed a version that is 100% his version and leaves no open question. That is not what we have. We have just we have one second edition of The Lord of the Rings, and we have some additional changes to The Hobbit over time, and that's basically. And we have what's it called? Some of the letters from that time, but even those are also like a reflection of his changing mindset and the changing ideas of him. And we have the adventures of Tom Bombadil and the Road Goes Ever On with some lore information. It's basically the most canon stuff we have, and everything else is just like in a void of, basically in a void where there is no real canon, if that makes sense. Orcs live fast and die young, kind of. Yeah, you are right. That's a good point. I remember this particular conversation because it's a really interesting one. In The Lord of the Rings, there are also orcs in Kiris Ungol who seem to speak of the old days before the big bosses and so on. So I'm not sure if I will find it, but that is a highly fascinating text thing. Oh, that was the wrong book. Let me just see if I can find. Let me just see, where is it? Tower of Kiris Ungol. It should be in this chapter. No, didn't find it. I don't know how it was. I don't remember a sentence, exact phrasing there. That's what makes it always difficult to find. I should include the chapter before that as well. Maybe I should look at chat. Maybe somebody posted the quote already. That would help. They're big bosses. That was the phrasing of the elves. So let me just make this a bit bigger so I can read this easier. They would, grunted Gorbek. We will see, but anyway, if it does go well, there should be a lot more room. What would you say if we get a chance, you and me, slip off and set up somewhere on our own, with a few trusty lads, somewhere where there's good loot, nice and handy, and no big bosses? Ah, said Shargat, like old times. Yes, said Gorbek, but don't count on it. I'm not easy in mind. As I said, the big bosses, his voice sank almost to a whisper. Even the biggest can make mistakes. Some nearly slipped, you say. I say something has slipped and we've got to look out. Always the poor Uruks to put slips, right? And small things. But don't forget, the enemies don't love us anymore, and they have again, don't forget, the enemies don't love us any more than they love him. And if they get topsides on him, we are done too. But see here, when were you ordered out, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of interesting what do they say? They also talk about big bosses and so on. And he says, like old times. That is basically the most important part of it. They talk about kind of no big bosses like old times. So that is a very interesting detail. Yeah, thank you, Tari. And you, Maranwe. I just was too slow. I also searched for boss, but there were much more hits in Lord of the Rings with the word boss than I anticipated, so I had to click through all of them. But luckily enough, you found it faster. So much appreciated. Always helps. A good question. Do you think Waldrick will die soon, or will he play a bigger role in further episodes? You know what I believe? I think Theo went missing when he noticed that it is not the right sword, and I think he suspicious Waldrick instantly and is now searching for him. And when he finds him, he maybe kills him to get the sword back. That is my theory. And pun was not intended. You know, theory, kind of funny. Yeah. Merrick, Stephen, I said this earlier that maybe I also said it in my review that maybe with Split he really meant, like, I don't know, maybe this led to Sauron splitting into multiple beings. Good one theory, yeah. But yeah, I had a similar thought that, though I don't see evidence for that, to be honest, because there's no precedence for that in the book that a Maiar can split into multiple entities. But I mean, it would not be the first time the show ignores the book or what is in the book. So as a result, it would be possible, I guess. But it's still an interesting theory. No problem, Merrick. Welcome to stream here as well. Also, yeah, I remember following Angry Joe for some of his game reviews. They were also pretty fun, always pretty fun. I know he also covers some shows and so on these days, but due to making YouTube content myself, I don't have time to watch everything. It would clearly surprise. Like, I had this theory that maybe I mentioned it in the review, even though I don't see the I don't. It's not a theory I particularly like, but I could see it possible that when he slew or split Sauron open, as he says, that maybe he split into the Stranger, Halbrand, and maybe another entity we don't know, or maybe only the two of them, or maybe also Adar split out of it. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe Adar is also part of Sauron. Maybe he didn't mean this word by word, if that makes sense. Maybe he is like the more caring side for the orcs of Sauron that got in the way of Sauron doing this experiment. So basically, Sauron had an inner conflict with how to treat the orcs, and then his being split into several entities, if that makes sense. So it was not literally he killed him with a sword or anything, but Sauron in of itself removed this part from him that was conflicting him. And I don't know, then he took over and the other two were banished. I don't know, it's something like that. Like, you can spin a lot of fascinating ideas around this, though I have to admit I'm not 100% sure. No, I'm not Catholic. Two 6-foot people on one 12-foot person makes sense. Yeah, that is an interesting detail I just recently noticed. Because I'm an idiot, kind of. Let me just see. We have to go to episode 1. And if you look at Sauron himself, you notice that Sauron is like really, really tall. Like, this is an orc. Let's pretend he is the size of a human. Then Sauron has like twice or almost 3 times the size of him. I can't, like on Photoshop, we could now measure the length of this orc here and compare it to Sauron. He's also standing a few meters away, so maybe he has twice the size. Which is kind of interesting, I feel. Yeah, that too. Maybe I can leave the image on for a moment longer. But yeah, Merrick had a very good point that maybe that is why the others are smaller now. Kind of a cool idea. If I understood him correctly. I would not be surprised. Like, I don't. Let's. Like I said, there is the Germans. That's not German saying, but the mathematical principle that out of falsehood you can. That an expression or a sentence that is false, you can. That it can imply anything. Yeah, it can imply something true or something false out of it. Only out of true sentences you can imply true stuff, but not false stuff. If that makes sense. So out of a false assumption, I can get any conclusion out, if that makes sense. And since we don't know exactly what is going on in the territory of speculating, everything is kind of possible. That is why everybody, especially Poppy, can be Sauron, because we simply don't know the truth, or we don't have a good anchor point for the truth. I mean, it's very unlikely, to be honest, but it is. So, what in this context, if I make conclusions on this show, I always take the books, and from the book's perspective, he can already working with Celebrimbor, but not with Gil-galad, and I think that the show could use this as well, because over Celebrimbor, he could influence Gil-galad, if that makes sense. So Celebrimbor has this ambition, and he learned some of these details Gil-galad mentioned last episode. He learned it from Celebrimbor, and he trusts Celebrimbor, and through that, Sauron has indirectly influence over Gil-galad. But I don't think that Gil-galad is influenced by Sauron directly. I would not like this particular idea. But yeah, I could imagine that this is actually the case, that Celebrimbor is already influenced, but we don't know. A few episodes ago, I was guessing that every random elf on the boat with Galadriel was Sauron. Yeah, definitely possible. I'm very curious what they will do with Adar. I think he and Theo and Waldrick will meet, because Adar if we go back to Adar and him missing in his prison cell at the very end. I hope I find it. Okay, the question, is it before this scene or after it? I think it's after it. Oh no. I was wrong? No, I can't be wrong. I must after it. Otherwise, it would be... Yeah, here, this scene. We know that Adar is gone. If we now assume that our friend Adar is... like, if we assume our stupid sword, black sword, has more to it than just being a key. Let's say there's also some power within, because Theo talks to Arondir before, and he basically says that he feels like he lost something. He feels empty. Like, so it seems the sword definitely had an influence on him. It has some power, if that makes sense. So I could imagine that using it to open the dam and flood the area was just one little part of it. And for whatever reason, it was just one part of it. I think there is still more to it. As a result, I think Adar is searching also for the blade. So the idea that Waldrick and Adar will meet again makes complete sense. And further, I think that Theo might search for him as well. Maybe try to kill him. So Adar and Theo could meet as well. I feel that is definitely a possibility. What now happens with Theo and Adar and the sword, I can't tell, but I think that's very likely. Have we met Celebrimbor? Yeah, we have seen him a few times, and he talked to Elrond. Or do you mean Celeborn, maybe? In the Silmarillion, of course, let me just read it to you. I wanted to show this quote in my review. I forgot, I think. Mighty King. There it is. So in the Silmarillion, we can read that Sauron, only to Lindon he did not come, for Gil-galad and Elrond doubted him and his fair seeming, and though they knew not who he in truth was, they would not admit him to that land. But elsewhere the elves received him gladly, and few among them hearkened to the message from Lindon, bidding them beware. For Sauron took himself the name of Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. And they had first much profit from his friendship. And he said to them, Alas, for the weakness of the great, for a mighty king is Gil-galad, and wise in all law is Master Elrond, and yet they will not aid me in my labors. So here the Silmarillion shortly summarizes what happens there quite a bit. And it definitely shows that Elrond and Gil-galad would not fall for Sauron in his disguise, though they did not know who he was. But they thought, okay, something is fishy about that guy. You can't even enter Lindon. And then what they did is they warned the others and sent messengers to the other kingdoms and warned them, there is this guy, something is wrong about him, be careful. But not all listened to that. And Sauron then, when he made contact to others, for example, to the lords of Eregion, he basically said, yeah, Gil-galad is a powerful king, and Elrond is very wise, and a lawmaster, and all of that, but they don't want to help me. And then he adds this sentence, which is it's like a very, I don't know, a very smart sentence, but also like a half-truth that is kind of interesting. He puts a component to this idea of Gil-galad. Can it be that they do not desire to see other lands become as blissful as their own? So he basically says, yeah, maybe, you know why they sent message to you to not help me in my labor? Because they fear that you could surpass them. They fear that you could also, become powerful and your lands could become as blissful. And it's just, they don't want you to be. That is a very smart move by Sauron and just shows what a great deceiver he is. And it's kind of, yeah. One of my favorite sentences of the section, by the way. I really like this particular dialogue here. Unfortunately, they don't have rights to this. Also, I want to show some things. I forgot what I just said that I wanted to show to people. I don't know, chat. Oh yeah, I remember. There was a dialogue between Arondir and Theo. We see Theo, interestingly, one more time. Gets almost hit by one of these flying fire things. Also, there's an interesting another scene that nobody talked about. This here is Elendil. I hate when my mouse cursor does this. It's terrible. Let me just see if we can get this fixed. Yes. This here is Elendil, and this is Isildur here. And what I found very fascinating, that he shouts basically, "Oh no, the queen," or something like that. Not, I have to help the queen. Something like that he says. And that's very interesting that he seems to be very loyal to the queen and very concerned. Like, this is a very emotional reaction that his queen could be in danger and he has to help. And he doesn't even care if stuff lands in front. He's just straight running for it. It's a very, very, very small detail, but a very cool scene in my opinion, because it characterizes Elendil a little bit further with very little effort. Oh, that is interesting. We see him here again. I assume it's Elendil. He didn't worry about his son. I think he trusts his son in that regard, that he's good enough to look out for himself. But you could maybe, it's an interesting point that you make, that he should be maybe more concerned about his son. But yeah, we also see Media later, so she's not dead or anything. Also really like her armor. And Miriel also helps somebody, like some villager. I'm not sure who she is. Probably that's a cameo of somebody's daughter or whatever. I don't know. And even Halbrand in a scene helps the villagers. Kind of fascinating stuff. Let me try to see what I'm looking for. Oh, I also mentioned it in my review. This scene here, and here you also see the elven stars on his shoulder, by the way, which is kind of interesting to see. Miriel looks tall, that is true. He listens to this particular scene, and to the water rumbling below him. Like he knows what's happening. So this scene makes it clear that this is all his plan. And then we see him lying here, and then the camera moves below the ground, and then we see the water rushing through. I love scenes like this. That's a pretty cool scene. I don't know why I like these scenes like these so much, but I really like that. Pretty awesome stuff. Okay, here we found Waldrick. I probably have to mark this scene in particular, so I find it. We probably will need it in the round table or something like that. Speaking of round table, I still have to... Yeah, I'm with Varg there. Maybe Halbrand. If Halbrand is not Sauron, which I still want to point out, it's not off the table. He still could be Sauron. I don't think he is, but I could also be wrong. Like, I'm very personally not... what do you say, indecisive on who he might be. But I would say if he's not, he's maybe the Witch King or the King of the Dead. Maybe more the King of the Dead, I feel, than the Witch King. It's an interesting point that they created all the sound slants to just destroy them in this event. But I think it was clear that this might happen. Like, as soon as I noticed... Ulrich uses sword as key. But yeah, there was a scene I mentioned where Theo is talking to Arondir, and Arondir gives a sword to him. This scene here, and I found this interesting that Theo said, "Yeah, I'm it's something, I lost something, and you know, it has like an impact on me not having the sword anymore." And he says, maybe give it the Numenoreans so they can throw it into the ocean. I like the idea of throwing something into the ocean to basically confine it evil there, or to bring it into a place where it's outside of where it's outside of the world. I mean, in theory, they said it wouldn't work for the One Ring for reasons, but still, it was a possibility that the River Anduin basically pushed the One Ring outside into the ocean, and it was lost forever as a result. It was one of the excuses of Saruman later. And it's basically, yeah, it's in the ocean, no chance of getting it. Like, I kind of like the place of an ocean as a place of, okay, it could be also in the sky, like the Silmaril, or in the ocean, but it doesn't matter, it's outside for us to get, outside of our reach. I mean, the Kamul, you know what? We also saw... I'm not sure who Kamul might be, but let's pretend... Was it last episode? Yeah, it was last episode, right? We have the cultists last episode. And I think somebody in chat somewhere said, or in the comments said, that they are... these are, we don't know the characters, but they are from a folk we already know. Maybe these are Easterlings or something like that. If they are Easterlings, then maybe she becomes Kamul or something like that. She is a black Easterling, but I don't know. We also had like theories last discussion that they might be. Oh, did I discuss this with somebody else? I can't remember anymore. Like, there was a theory that they can turn into wolves. And the wolves, we see that maybe they track down the hobbits or the stranger or both or whatever, for whatever reason. And they can turn into wolves and then hunt those people down. So maybe they are shapeshifters like Beorn or something, or they have some sorcery going on. Really hard to tell. But I find this very interesting. But they could also be Easterlings, because in a way, it's also an opportunity, if we go into Hobbit territory, to show more shapeshifters in the show. Skin changes. Is skin changes a term? Let me just look it up. Yeah, skin changer is the term in Hobbit. Oh, interestingly, Thorin is also let's see that. Yeah, it's interesting. She could also be one of them. Never thought about that. Yeah, maybe it is something like reference to Thorin. You know, the Lady of, what is the translation of Thorin? Lady of something shadow? Woman of secret shadow. That is, or she of hidden shadow. Very interesting idea, in my opinion. Yeah, it kind of makes sense that Halbrand like, that was a big hint that Halbrand says to Adar, "Do you remember who I am?" It seems like he doesn't recognize him. And then Adar later asks him himself, "Who are you exactly?" Wolfgang Mozart is also here. Awesome. Good old Mozart. Pretty cool. The show wants us to think Halbrand is Sauron, but hoping for the stranger. Yeah, it's really difficult. It's an interesting point. Also, if Halbrand is Sauron, then why he wants Adar to remember who he is? He tries to hide his identity. Imagine if Adar recognized him as Sauron in front of Galadriel and the Numenoreans. That's a very good point, in my opinion. But I'm also not, like I said, I can't exclude this theory. But it's definitely possible. Oh, welcome, Verluk. I think it's not Vert, Verluk. Whatever. It's very interesting detail for me when I see the letter. In German, it's called because in German, if we see this sound, you don't do the classic sound, but you do the you do a weakened form of the E sound instead. Ü is different. Ü is pretty accurate, but in German we don't have word, like, for example, the German word for apples would be Äpfel. But if you look at how it's written phonetically, Äpfel would be written with an A, but you pronounce it not Äpfel, but you pronounce it Äpfel, like with an E sound, or a sound that is related to the E sound. More like Äpfel. And it's kind of strange that this is very present in German. That is why I often struggle. Like in English, it's completely different. Both sounds exist. But that's why I often struggle with A and I sounds when I have to make a distinction between them. A good example is the word flash and flash. Maybe this time I managed to say it somewhat correctly, but there was a time in my life that both words were pronounced the same. I think it's a German thing, at least for me. But yeah, phonology. Same with the word for what's it called? Like dam, the thing to block the water. It sounds very similar to the curse. I'm not even sure if there's a phonetical difference between them. No, there isn't. Didn't know that both are pronounced the same. That's interesting. I thought there might be a phonetical difference. But according to the dictionary here, they give me the same IPA for both. But yeah, enough stupid language stuff that's unrelated. Also, interesting question for chat. I can't do this in a vote. In theory, could, but it's complicated. What does chat think? Like, if you have to order the most powerful Maiar in a top list, how would your ranking look? Because somebody just mentioned the Maiar, and it has nothing to do with the episode, but maybe it's a fun question for in the middle. So for me, we could make a poll, but we have not enough options for a poll, I feel. But maybe make a poll because it might be fun, just as a little powerful. Do you write powerful with one L or two? I can't remember. Just write with one. Most powerful Maya. We could do the same. I think the Valar are even more difficult to rank. I have to copy paste them. I don't know how to do the tremor E in. Well, it's not important to be honest, but the capital letter. Oh, you don't write them with a capital letter tremor. Okay, you use the O. Good to know. Also, his female pendant, I never can remember her name. I don't know why. And now I have to select four. I have to select 4 people. That is the biggest problem. I would. Okay, because I don't have enough space, we have to be efficient. Let's pretend Eonwe and Ilmare are on the same level, so we get one more option. I, in my opinion, would just maybe explain my selection. I have to make some couples here and there because it's it always feels so wrong. Okay. Maybe there's the problem YouTube. Can we have 4 or 6 options for votes? That would be so awesome. Why only 4? Let me look in chat. No, we don't do 3 polls. I promise. Who shall we reject from the list? Because there's one person I want to have in the poll. I have to. Let's pretend Gandalf and Melian are on the same power level, whatever that means. The question is, shall I reject? Okay, I make it like this, but I special. There should be a 5th option, which would be Osse and Uinen, in my opinion. We reject Osse and Uinen. Because I think Osse and Uinen are only very powerful in water, and most powerful Maya on land. That's how we get around that. And space. Very curious. I have to make some compromise because I only have 4 options. I'm just very curious to see what people might think of that. Okay, I'm a bit surprised by the answer. Okay, finally we get the votes in that we need. No, just vote however you like. I'm just very curious. And we include Gandalf the White. Like Gandalf as I should have written Olorin instead of Gandalf. Maybe that's a bit misleading. Sorry on that part. But you probably know what I mean. Also, Emil Sinclair, could Sauron be from outer space and come from... No, the stranger story with the meteor is really strange. The only reference to a meteor and a potential Maiar is the man in the moon. Maybe while we keep the poll running for a moment, let me just see if I have my Adventures of Tom Bombadil version here that is readable. I found it. There's a poem, The Man in the Moon Came Down Too Soon. I hope it's the right one. Yeah, that's the right one. He twinkled his feet as he thought of the meat, of pepper and punch galore, and he tripped unaware on his slanting stair, and like a meteor, a star in flight, ere Yule one night, flickering down, he fell from his leathery pass to a foaming bath in the windy bay of Bel. So this line is the only section where we find a meteor in it and a person falling down like a meteor. And me and Dan are like a fans of the theory that the Meteor Man in the show is the origin of this poem. This poem was written by the Hobbits, like this is Hobbit folklore officially. That doesn't mean everything in this is correct and happened 100% so, but it just says the Hobbits have these songs and folklore, and this is what we know about this. And they wrote it down. That's an interesting point. In the Book of Lost Tales, an elf climbs on the moon before it takes off, so he lives on it forever. It's also a possibility that it's not Tilion, it's maybe this elf. Another interesting point by Snow Warning. I've not thought about that reference. Always thought maybe the Man in the Moon reference is Tilion. So, I don't know. If somebody still wants to vote here, feel free to press on one of the options in chat. Else I will close the vote in like 30 seconds or so. I think Sauron does not have the One Ring yet. I think the One Ring will be created later. Yeah, that's true. We could have used a different poll, but I think it's more convenient like this. But yeah, there's no other reference for that, especially not in context of Sauron or so. It would make, in my opinion, very little sense. So I'm still not the hugest fan of the idea of meteor men, but I like the actor, and I felt the story arc was relatively interesting. So I like that, even though lore-wise, I'm not the hugest fan of it so far. Also, don't like that there are so many mysteries in the show, when Tolkien is less about mysteries and more about exploring some concepts in quite some depth. Okay, so I would say we end the poll now and see the result. I'm very surprised, not too surprised, but Sauron takes a cake with 57%. Eonwe and Ilmare take 26%. I assume they are just not as known, but the next one, Gandalf and Melian, are probably the most well-known other Maiar besides Sauron. And Arien and Tilion are probably the least known, I would assume. They're only at 3%. Mysteries, plot holes. Yeah, that's a good point. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So my personal ranking would be Eonwe and Ilmare first, because when in the War of Wrath, to basically fight Morgoth, Manwë sends Eonwe. That makes Eonwe, in my opinion, very powerful already. Because, Eonwe is really powerful. Like, he's basically the boss of the Maiar, besides the Valar, but he's a leader of the Maiar. Same with Ilmare. So I would assume both are very powerful in their own ways. So that would be my number one. I find Sauron to place is very difficult, because I think Sauron is also very powerful, but I would definitely say, I don't know. Arien and Tilion are also difficult to place, same as Osse and Uinen, which are missing now here. I feel like Osse is just, when it comes to how he's portrayed, to his power, he's very powerful. Because, for example, Ulmo says to Osse, hey, make this island there, it will become Numenor, and Osse just brings up land from below the sea and it becomes Numenor. That, in my opinion, seems very, very powerful already. But of course, it's more a water thing. That's why I added the on land, because I only have 4 options, else I would have included them. Very curious how Osse and Uinen would fare in this regard. Arien is, in my opinion, like 2 of the most important objects for the order of the world we know, and also later in Middle-earth people know, are sun and moon. Like, without the sun, it would be very cold. Like, I know there was a time without the sun, it wasn't too cold on Middle-earth, but I feel how the world is working, like, the sun has the power to weak all the orcs. We have to keep this in mind, like, except for the Uruk-hai, I guess, but you get the point. The sun is very powerful. The sun weakens the Nazgul, and so on. And then we have the Maiar, who guides the sun. Like, in my opinion, I was always very interested in physics, and the sun is like an absurdly powerful object in our area. Like, it's gigantic. It's extremely hot. It has a lot of unimaginable amounts of energy from a human perspective, and just knowing there is like an entity close to it that just guides it on its path feels always very powerful. In a lot of mythologies, for example, I think in the Egypt one, there's also like a sun goddess or a sun god, and it's very powerful usually. The sun is definitely, I assume, in a lot of ways considered a very powerful object. And as a result, I would say Aryen must also be a very powerful Maiar as a result. She was powerful enough that Morgoth in some versions tried to corrupt her. Same interestingly with Osse. So I would definitely say Osse, maybe Eonwe, Aryen, Osse, or Tilion is the same. Like, what is it called? The in German we call it. We have a very cool word, Gezeiten, for it. The movement of the water to specific times. The tidal powers. Also, I think related to the moon, which is a very interesting thing if you think about it. And that is also very important if you think about this. So just in this context, Tilion must also be kind of powerful. Probably not as powerful as Aryen, I guess, because he gets burnt when he gets close. But it is, it's interesting in this context. So I would definitely place maybe Aryen, Tilion very high. Maybe second, not sure. Then I would have said Osse Uinen, because Uinen has power over Osse, even though Osse is more powerful as in what he does, if that makes sense. But Uinen, like Osse was also almost corrupted by Morgoth, and I think it was Uinen who kind of convinced him to not go there. So that makes Uinen also, in a way, wise. And then we have Gandalf and Melian. Why I think Gandalf is more powerful than Sauron is because Gandalf wins at the end. And he gets killed, you could argue, but he was not killed by Sauron. He was killed in one-to-one combat against the Balrog. But in a way, Gandalf always managed to place all the players of Middle-earth in a way that in the end Sauron loses. Like, it's not even close in my opinion. Like, Gandalf definitely, when it comes to the wisest of the Maiar, and I think Tolkien portrays his works in a way that wisdom is very powerful. That is why, for example, among the Valar, Nienna would, in my opinion, very high. And she's also considered in the group of the 8 most powerful Valar, and she's just the tear maiden. Like, she cries a lot, but she is the Valar of mercy and pity and of mourning and was it mourning? I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but you know what I mean. And so as a result, I would say, yeah, she is extremely powerful because she's wise. In the end, it's wisdom that beats Sauron in a way, because Gandalf has this foresight and can look very deep into things. And he even makes, like, the moves of Gandalf make that or lead to Sauron making mistakes. And these mistakes ultimately lead to his downfall. That is why I would argue that Gandalf is more powerful than Sauron. And he didn't even have his full power for a long time. Same, interestingly, with Melian. Melian fails at the end, but she also showed the path out of the failing. Like, she said to Thingol, you should not take the Silmaril. But Thingol does it, and it leads to his end. But it was not like Melian has not warned him. And her power also blocked off the power of Morgoth. Like, that's like a description how the girdle of Melian basically clashed with the evil spread of the power of Morgoth and kept it at bay. That in of itself seems very, very powerful. I wish I've voted Gandalf now. But yeah, it's, in my opinion, very interesting to see. But you have to be fair, though. It always depends on how you define power or what it means, if that makes sense. Like, you could, of course, always argue power is like it's if I would have phrased the vote, who is the most powerful Maiar in one-to-one combat or something like that. That, I guess, the results, the point would be different then. But I think in an overall, like, I don't know, what do you do with power? You change stuff. Else you don't need power, right? If you just want to maintain, or if you don't want to do anything, you can just do nothing. You don't need to power. Like, doing nothing is the lowest state of energy, just to just preserve how things are. Of course, if you bring order into things, like if you clean up your garden, you have to take power. You have to use your power to clean it, to keep it that way. Else, it will just other things, but it's very it's a very, very interesting point, in my opinion, that you have to really look into what you understand from that. And what I like about Tolkien so much is that I think his idea of power is often very nuanced. Like, there's certain situations, 1v1 Gosmog, or Xelion, but he's not a Maiar, so. But it's kind of it's definitely it really depends on what you want to do. So I think power, in a way, also you have to look at what did these people achieve, what did they do with their power, and in a way Sauron also achieved a lot. That is why I would also rank him relatively high. But on the other side, I would also argue he fails in a lot of ways as well. But he's really good at coming back. Like who's the Maiar with the highest comeback potential? Would be pretty, I guess, in a way, Gandalf wins again because he was brought back by Eru himself. But it's Sauron also had quite a few comebacks. You have to give him that. Yeah, you could of course argue that they also brought Numenor up, but Sauron brought it down. That is true. That is a good point. Also, there was like a letter posted here. Sauron was, of course, confounded by the disaster and diminished, having expended enormous energy in the corruption of Numenor. He needed time. Yeah, it's an interesting point that Tolkien writes this in letter 211. He's the most cunning, yeah, like, definitely. I mean, Gandalf is also very cunning in a way. Anything else to discuss in the episode? I know, people want to know about the episode, but sometimes these discussions are also fun. I have to admit, I look a bit forward to having streams where we won't discuss the show anymore, but yeah. They will come back when the show is completed. And we have discussed the show after episode 8. Like, there will be a few things to discuss after the complete season is out. I definitely want to do something like, let's look at the show at season 1 and see what's going on with it. Let me just drink something real quick. Yeah, that's true. We discussed now the I don't even know. We discussed Adar. I think the Adar part was probably for me the most interesting part of the show, I have to admit. Isildur is maybe a good topic in my opinion. Oh, also, I'm sure there are a lot of people from the United States in chat. Maybe that's a good poll. Where are you from? The problem is just very curious. Did you, like, I know that, for example, Germany is always very, yeah, I have a water bottle here. Like, Germany always didn't like violence when it comes to age rating, and in Germany this episode is I assume it's just the rating of Amazon's internal age rating is 12. I felt like, this is 12? Like, I found this episode was brutal at times. Like, this eye stabbing scene with the orc, wow. I thought, what is going on here? That felt like, I think he's not here. Spielkalb of Sparta is not here. He is, he said, like, on the Discord server that he, that this episode felt a bit like he feared how Peter Jackson would do stuff. So I have to, maybe we do it continent-wise. So I just call Canada, United States is North America. Europe. Europe, maybe. What continents do we need? I'm not sure if I have. How late is it in Australia right now? I have also a few Australian viewers, which I don't want to get angry at me. But I also know there are some. I don't know. South America. We have to go for Asia. Probably I have the fewest people from Asia in my audience. Australia and France. Yeah, it's already tomorrow in Australia. It's like I don't know, 8 or 9 in the morning. Asia is huge. I know Asia is huge, but I assume I have very few. Okay, I have a few Asian viewers. That's unfortunate. I assume like the most viewers of mine should be from like on my YouTube analytics, like 50% are United States. Wait, I can look it up if people are interested in my stuff. And usually it's not represented on my Discord. Kind of funny in that regard. Yeah. So 47.8% are United States. United Kingdom are 11.4%, Canada 6%, Germany 3.3%, Australia 2.9%. Then I don't know. What is it? 2% Sweden, 1.4% Netherlands, 1.4% Norway, 1% Philippines. Okay, that's pretty cool. Shoutouts to the Philippines then. India 0.9%, Ireland 0.8%, Brazil 0.8%, Greece 0.8%, Denmark 0.7%, France 0.7%, New Zealand 0.6%, Spain 0.6%, Finland 0.6%, and so on and so forth, and Poland 0.5%. Kind of interesting, but yeah, it's interesting that in chat, at least from the people active, it's only like 60% are from Europe. That is kind of cool, I have to admit. I did not expect that, because it's like the other way around when it comes to almost the other way around when it comes to my stream. Of course, I would love though to have more than 4 options in the poll. But yeah, pretty interesting to see. However, yeah, the question why I'm asking is, I know that, for example, in the United States, age rating has a lot of trouble with, or you get in a lot of trouble with nudity. That is far more relaxed in Germany, for example. Like if you see nudity somewhere, Germans don't really care if their kids see some boobs. That is not a problem. But usually, historically, violence was usually heavily censored. That got a lot, like, it seems like Germany got a lot more tolerant in the last few decades when it comes to violence. But I've really felt this episode was a bit over the top. Was the episode too brutal for 12-year-olds? So, not asking you, but I felt like it was a bit much. or too violent. I mean, of course, the violence was also kind of like a lot of like this black blood fountains were going on in this episode. Very curious. It's 13 plus in Switzerland. Of course, 12 isn't enough. Yeah, that's that for sure. I'm just surprised. Maybe a 16 rating would be too much, but I was kind of surprised. Okay, it's interesting, but now in this context, we also know like Europe in general maybe is on the a little bit stricter when it comes to the depiction of violence in media compared to yeah, the violence didn't really add anything. Yeah, 14, 15, I would agree. Maybe a 16, like the problem is we have no 14 rating in Germany. We have only 12 and 16. And it's kind of in the middle of that, I feel. When I was 12, I would have laughed. I know some people with 12, they would also have laughed it. How many trilled R words, I assume, can you say in a row? I don't know. I need a list with trilled R words, then probably as many as I want, because switching, like trilling the R in a word is not that difficult. Yeah, but still, the orc fighting scenes here were pretty brutal in this episode. I felt, especially the eye stabbing scene. I thought, wow. And then he pulls it out, and then the black blood is just spraying out like a fountain on Arondia's head. I think, okay, it's maybe a bit excessive in my opinion. Some of the law decisions are really strange, I agree. Didn't like the Mithril origin story as well, but it could be still a lie. Also, maybe I should end the poll. It's interesting that most people here, though, says yeah, it was a bit too much, at least for a 12-year-old. But yeah, I'm just seeing here this scene here. I don't want to, because I usually try to keep my content somewhat family friendly. Also, I'm not sure how her name is pronounced. The director changed. I thought she was a Swedish director, so I thought her name would be Charlotte, but she's like French Swedish. So Charlotte, I think, is the E silent in the French name? But Charlotte or something like that. Then last name should be Brännström. Something like that. Maybe there's somebody from Sweden who can, or from France who can shed light on this, who knows how the actress is pronounced. I didn't look it up. The actress, the director. But yeah, some like the fighting for me was mostly okay, and we knew there would be some fighting going on in this scene. I discussed it in my review. What I noticed definitely was, of course, the degree of violence there. I kind of somebody said that after they won, suddenly the orcs hit their target. I found that kind of funny because we remember the scene when Arondir and Bronwyn and Theo were getting out of the place, like when they escaped through the forest, and then daylight started, and you see these arrows not hitting them all the time. And here in this show, suddenly it seems like, okay, the orcs really can hit their target. That was kind of funny, like to see the difference in shooting accuracy all of a sudden. I feel like also, like the first orc we saw, he was like really powerful, and we also saw some more powerful orcs here in these fight scenes. Maybe I should leave it on here for a moment, but they felt weaker at times, but they were now shooting better. So it feels a bit inconsistent how it's definitely a problem in the show that stuff really feels a bit inconsistent. Like look how many villagers are here in some scenes, and we know that is half of what we have seen before, because this is only the other half was now killed off. And then on top of that, they are now pushed into the tavern, and then some of them are killed there as well, or died in the tavern because they were wounded. And then at the end, when they celebrate, like the villager count seems to be regenerating a little bit over time again. Maybe it's just like a weird visual effect or so, or we never know how many there are exactly. But it feels really strange that all villagers fit into the tavern, and then they have this huge celebration, and they even have food left, because it wasn't like they were starving a few episodes ago almost. Like it really feels a bit inconsistent at times. It's, in my opinion, a bit unfortunate. Yeah, they were really getting sniped. Yeah, maybe another poll question, but I definitely, when let's talk about the day-night switches in the tavern as well. Like here we see Adar appearing then later, and he goes to the tavern, and we see fire is out, it's dark, and I don't know what. It really gets really hard to do the stuff here. Sometimes so difficult to find the frames. Well, I need these markers so badly. Here we also see the seeds again. The Alphelin seeds. Simbelwine, I think is the pronunciation in the how the Rohirrim later call them. Interestingly, they grow on graves, so it's kind of interesting that we see them using in the context of death a few times here. Found that a very interesting detail. Like here in this scene, for example, it looks still pretty dark, and then we also see the ram being delivered. And it's still dark enough that they need like torches and so on. Here we also see, by the way, the winged thing here that we have seen before somewhere. So it's part of the tavern, interestingly, as a little side detail. It's potentially a little bit reminiscent on what we see on the symbol of Halbrand, of the necklace thing, on the whatever talisman, whatever you call it. And maybe the Numenorians brought the food, but I still had the feeling, like when we saw the table, that it was a few days later. But then you have to ask yourself the question, if it's a few days later, I said it in the review as well, how long did Waldrick need to get stuff done? Like, how long did he need to get to the tower? Let me just see if I find the scenes here that I need to see. But yeah, for example, this scene. Now the orcs comes into the tavern, and you see there's still torchlight outside. Like you see the flickering. Maybe I can play this a bit. Something like that. And let me just switch and search the other frame. There's one scene where you even see the door again. Like if you, for example, now look outside, here in the background, that is the door where my system now doesn't like me anymore. Yeah, here in the background, it still looks dark. And you even see a torch here behind this thing. And yeah, now Adar is coming in. You see, there's torchlight at the wall. The orcs here are standing there, looking what's going on. If I press play now, here he is. You see, it's dark outside. And then another dude comes in. Like, you definitely see the torchlight still here reflected on the wall, and so on. And we have further shots, like this one here. Here you see his sword, which he never uses, interestingly. And you see the sky is dark. So now he is in the tavern. We have this whole negotiation thing, which seems like this can almost be real time. At most, he's like 10 minutes in this place. And now, when he comes out and talks to Waldrick, it's dimmering already. And interestingly, we have in parallel the cut where the Rohirrim, I said wrong, the Númenóreans, could be the Rohirrim though, are coming here. And we know the sun, like keep this in mind, in addition. The sun is rising. I didn't mention that, at least in my review. So I don't know where you people are, if you're familiar with the map, but it's map time again, of course. So where they need to go, like Tirharad is somewhere here. I can even show it you on the in-game, on the other map. Tirharad is here. The Númenóreans land here. I'm not sure if I'm messing something up, but this is west, and the sun is not rising in the west. So how can they ride into the screen? If I press here play, my system doesn't die. They go into this, like in my direction where I'm sitting, into your direction where you are looking at the screen. So this here is west. But wait a moment. They should come from east. Where are they exactly? So that seems strange. I mean, you could make the argument they went through the Morgul Vale, it's later called Morgul Vale, I guess, and entered this place. And then they made this huge way around and then came from east to attack. I'm not sure what their exact route is, but it's kind of strange to see the sun going up behind them. And this is, of course, a Peter Jackson reference in this scene here. Which we all know, but it is kind of strange. Like, I would wish sometimes for a bit more consistency in these details. We know also the sun is rising, and even if this is east and they're coming from east, shouldn't it be already brighter outside? But we don't see this reflected in the other scenes. And, you could argue, why you don't see this reflected in the other scenes? Because this is in a studio, and they simply, like, the door outside is not lit or anything. It's just due to the studio environment that the door looks dark outside. Like, when Adar now comes outside, suddenly the time changed, and it has a, like, you know what I mean? It's bright outside. However, next scene, you look outside the door and it's bright, and you ask yourself, why? Like, it makes no sense. It's very inconsistent, I feel. So it is possible to make this scene here be bright in the studio. Maybe it was not a studio and it was inside this actual tavern that they built. Oh, you just got to save. Kind of funny. And yeah, that is really, really strange. I mean, it's not a big detail. It's just like what you call this, like it's a classical film mistake that happens also. But I mean, they definitely put in the effort to make it brighter. Or it was really filmed in the tavern. Or they built the tavern 2 times. And parts of it were filmed in a studio where it's dark outside. And parts were filmed in the tavern, in the actual tavern that they built. Because they built this little village here, I think. But yeah, another shot. Here you also see it's bright outside. I think there's even a window where you in some corner in this when they start fighting inside the tavern, where you kind of see it. I don't see it right now, but yeah, it's definitely there. Continuity, yeah, a continuity mistake. What is it called in German? Folgefehler? No, some word like that. I'm not sure. Forgot it. How close is a village to the equator? Well, that is a good question. I don't have an accurate card of the world, but in my opinion, if we look at this here, this is the first age map, of course, but it doesn't matter. Wait, I have a second one as well. Here, that one. So Numenor, like the equator of the world, should go directly through Tol Eressëa, and in my opinion, Tir Harat should be here, roundabout. I would argue it is definitely northern hemisphere, so definitely north of the equator. Yeah, it's not a big mistake. Is there an equator? Well, that's a complicated question. Right now, there isn't, to be honest. But we know that the sun, like in the mythology of the world, the sun comes through. Like the world is not a sphere; it's flat at this time in the mythology. There's a version where Tolkien wrote a so-called round world version at some point where the world was always a sphere. But it's a complicated topic. We ignore it for here. In the mythology, there are the doors of morning and the gates, or the gates of morning and the doors of night, I think they are called. I always mix up what is door, what is gate. And the doors of morning is where the sun enters basically the world and goes above along this line here, I would assume, and it goes to the doors of night and leaves basically again, and then it takes some unusual path and at the next day appears here again. So at least when it comes to this, to how the sun is moving, yeah, there should be something like an equator, and maybe some effects could change due to this, if that makes sense. But yeah, what do I know? I mean, in theory, this effect shouldn't be too. You won't have to think this through, but I probably can't right now. But the reason why in some regions of the world you would see the sun in the north is because of the world is, I think, slightly tilted, right? And then it depends on the timing stuff. If you're at least in this particular area, stuff seems to change. That was close. I almost ended the stream by accident. I just hit the wrong button, almost. And speaking of ending the stream, I have to end the stream in, let's say, 20 minutes. So we maybe have to activate focus mode now and do some stuff. But yeah, that was definitely a detail I wanted to mention, and maybe because we haven't talked about, like, the fighting was okay. Some people, there was this shot where Galadriel did the dodge on the saddle, where she just did this maneuver. I have to admit, I kind of liked that. I don't know, I know it's stupid, but I thought it was kind of cool. Like, she is Galadriel, one of the most powerful elves. If there's anybody who can do stupid stuff like this, it's her. I know people discuss this a lot, but I don't know. I found this kind of cool. She has this little handle here where she can hold a grip onto that. It's probably unnecessary, but I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, it is, in my opinion, still better than the sword catapult. Also, she cut off the head of this orc in this position, which I think was maybe a bit much, but whatever. I kind of found it funny. I liked it. Yeah, it is true, Emil. Like, it's not a complaint, but I'm like, the show gets so many cool details right, and sometimes it surprises me that this detail was not got fully right. Like, I don't know. It's not a big deal. Like, this is definitely, I agree, it's a very small, unnecessary detail that doesn't matter too much. I just found it interesting to mention. What I found more immersion breaking, though, this stupid sun direction, cardinal directions aside, was definitely what definitely kicked me out of the immersion was that it again felt like the episode just treats time however the episode wants to treats time. Like, it bends time as the writers bend the time as they needed to have to bend it. I can't phrase the sentence, but you know what I mean. Like, I noticed he goes into the tavern, it's dark outside, he goes outside of the tavern, it's suddenly not dark anymore, and you think, oh. No one major died. Well, I wouldn't expect that too many major characters die there. I was, since I didn't know what was going on with Bronwyn, I could have imagined that they killed Bronwyn early off. That was definitely, I was concerned that Bronwyn might die here in this episode. I was not expecting that, and she, spoiler, didn't die at the end, but it's, yeah. Yeah, that's true. The Legolas moves are also, but I didn't find this writing trick too bad. Like, this looked like a stunt that was physically possible to do. Maybe not doing the stunt and cutting off the head at the same time. Like, I thought, okay, that was impressive writing, and it seemed like it was not CGI or anything. I think the actress basically did this, which was kind of cool. Sure, dodging the arrow like this was stupid, but I don't know. For me, it worked out. Yeah, the live stream is still going. We have to end, though, in a couple of minutes, because I need to be at Dan's stream. I already got the link for his stream. Yeah, they came quickly for Numenor, but I can leave with this because we don't know how exactly stuff happens in parallel. But when it's inside the confined space of this tavern, then I would expect that time outside of the tavern still behaves like it behaves inside the tavern, if that makes sense. That I could imagine. I'm not sure if maybe we can look into this. Let me just. We are an analysis stream, so. We look into stuff like that. I mean, if it's CGI, it's pretty good CGI then, because it looked like the actress or the stunt double of her actually did this. Is this Galadriel or is this a stunt double though? No, it's a stunt double. Is it? It's very hard to see. I think it's a stunt double. Double. In German, we say double. In English, you say double. Don't ask me why that is. The stunt double. Is this a stunt double? Like, I don't know. I think it is. I think Morgoth Clark's eyebrows are a bit further, but it's really hard to recognize. Yeah, it's probably a double, but still, I think this was done for real. Like, she holds to this thing here. I would assume, like, there are like horse trick riding stuff in real, and I'm not an expert on horse riding. Maybe somebody, yeah, do. And the reason for that is it's a French word, and for that reason we use a somewhat distantly more French pronunciation of in German for it. It's like whatever. Morgoth is so pretty. Definitely. I think she's a really fantastic Galadriel. She could be taller though, but I mean, we could now unpleasantly zoom in a lot and try to see something. Yeah, I don't think that's Morgoth Clark. I think you see the hair has like it's like a wig. I'm not 100% sure though. I know Morgoth is also not blonde in real life, but speaking of, where do we have? Here. Let me just see if I find another scene. Like in this scene, if you look at her hair, I think she wears a wig. I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong though. I don't want to do Morgoth Clark no justice, but I assume this is a special thing you need for these kinds of stunts on a saddle. I think that it's not a standard thing you have there. So this was kind of a planned scene, but still was kind of cool, I have to admit. And I think it was done in real, like it's not CGI or anything, which is, now I just did something terrible. Yeah, no, it works. But I also want to appreciate the technical possibilities I have in the stream, that we can zoom in and stuff like this. It's pretty cool. Also, Miriel looks fantastic in these shots here. Like, I really like her armor. It looks pretty cool. I have to admit, though, I know every time there's an episode, I mention Dark Souls. But in Dark Souls 1, there is if you kill the sunlight maggot, you get like a helmet, and it looks distantly. It doesn't look the same, but it kind of reminded me of that. Though it's silver more, I think. Or it's the headpiece of Gwyndolin. Names. Now I have to get. Let me just see if I find that really quick. I mean, I said we should focus on progress here to get stuff done, but we all know it would not be like that at the end. Okay, I should be much smarter when I do stuff like this and do it in the correct rows, so I can even capture that. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe I don't find it, which is my biggest concern right now. Yeah, the Moonlight set. Sunlight Maggot probably looks still different. Oh, it's Sunlight Maggot is not a set. Could be in the other set, but let me see. I mean, it's different, kind of, but like don't get me wrong. The armor set and stuff is completely different, but I still, as a Dark Souls fan, it reminded me of this thing here, kind of. The Crown of the Dark Sun. This thing here. Pretty cool. But yeah, like that's my Dark Souls reference for the for this episode. Also, the Sunlight Maggot. Maybe I should find that too. Be interesting to see. Armor, headpieces. Well, it looks too different, the Sunlight Maggot. It's just a very strange helmet. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Isildur is like in the stable stuff, and he, in my opinion, probably is as a result in the logistics of like a cavalry. So he's not officially fighting. He has to do support stuff, but probably she knows that he really wants to fight, and so Miriel sends Isildur to also go help his friends and his father and so on. I don't know. It's a good question why stuff like this happened there, but I was kind of okay with that. What is that? Also, this picture is from Dark Souls wiki.com, so shoutouts to that. I also don't find Isildur annoying. I think Isildur was also definitely like I wouldn't say he's annoying. I found Isildur was hard to understand because his character was not developed enough yet in the story of things. And I feel like now that he's a bit better developed and we understand Isildur a bit better, I think he was really good in this episode. And the actor is also pretty good at what he's doing. It's mostly a writing thing. But yeah, it's of course, if you send his father into battle, it's kind of understandable that Isildur also wants to fight. Then we have the was another thing I wanted to mention. Yeah, a lot of Peter Jackson references here. Question chat. This. No, it can't be the same, right? Was a scene like this in Fellowship of the Rings? Like this particular pass? Or do I just have bad memory? Or is it just how I imagined it's described in the book? Very interesting question. Because just seeing the scene, I thought, is this also from Peter Jackson films? Does somebody know in chat? Maybe with the Arwen horse scene? Yeah, there are tons of references. I didn't mind, to be honest, but we have the Norolim, Asphalos. I really like that, to be honest. It's kind of funny. Like, the reference is so cool. I find the reference kind of even cool in this context. Because Norolim... also, they captured this shot which is really cool in my opinion. Like, but maybe it was Morpheus Clark. I'm not sure. Yeah, the photography, the cinematography is really good in this year. But yeah, it's kind of funny that Arwen, her granddaughter, for people not knowing this, Galadriel is the grandmother of Arwen, says it also to a white horse, which this case is not Asphalos. So in the books, of course, Arwen is also not riding this horse. Asphalos is the horse of Glorfindel, actually, and it was changed for the film adaptation of Peter Jackson, though it made a lot of sense to change that, in my opinion. But yeah, she says Norolim, which is the imperative of run, also run, and so it means run fast or swift. It's also in the books, by the way. So this phrase is not, but it's Sindarin. And it's kind of funny that we see so much Quenya in this show, and then at the end it's always that they speak. And now this episode we see Sindarin talked a lot, but interestingly only to horses. So Sindarin, official language of the horses, confirmed here, in my opinion. We have a sample size of 2, which is pretty big. And as said, sadly, we have to end the stream soon, but there will be a watch party tomorrow, I guess, or so. Another scene I wanted to mention, which I didn't mention in the review, like we have the whole Halbrand Galadriel potential romance scene. I just want to mention, I don't like the idea. Like, I mean, it would be terrible if there would be some stuff going on. I think it's just about that both are driven characters that are kind of really struggling emotionally with their past, and that like fighting finally against their enemy, or whatever enemy they have, at least for the enemy of Galadriel, together, and redeem themselves in a way, kind of made them feel better. So it's more like they are, I don't know, their souls are, what do you say, soul friend? Seelenverwandtschaft in German. Soul relative. Seelenverwandtschaft. Soulmates, that's the word. Okay, something like that. So you can definitely interpret it in different ways. Another thing I didn't mention in the review, though. Also, my theory that Halbrand might be the father of Theo is wrong. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to know who Halbrand is, so that makes it kind of strange. And I don't know why, I found this really interesting. Miriel in this few shots. Miriel looks so happy in this scene. Like, look at her. She's really happy to help these people. I find this very, what do you say? Enjoyable to see her so happy. Like, very likable is the word I'm suing. Sympathetic. And I don't know. She was so happy to be here and help these people against the enemy. And I don't know. She felt she did the right thing. And she still have, of course, this, okay, my father just said if I go there, I find darkness. What could he mean? So far, I helped these people and we saved the day. Awesome. We have a good time. We even see her, I think, with a mug at the moment, which I found kind of cool. Everyone seems to be very happy now. Happy end. And then, yeah, the episode's called Udun, which means basically underworld or even hell. Tolkien, like in the index of the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien gives the translation of Udun as hell or underworld also. And I'm not 100% sure on that, but would have to look at the index. But it's pretty cool. She gets the mug and yeah, all hail the true king of the Southlands. Well, that's another hint for Sauron, I feel. But I really like this particular scene. Yeah, enjoy it while it lasts 5 minutes later. And then, yeah, Mordor will be transformed to hell. basically. Here we see hell coming. And I have to say, this looks really awesome. Like, visually, really stunning. Udun. Interestingly, there's no good etymology for it. And Udun is in the First Age. That will be really difficult to show, chat. Udun is a fortress of Sauron in the First Age. And it's hard to tell where it is exactly. The Quenya name is Utumno. And we might have seen it in the other, like we speculated about Udun being Utumno, Udo being the fortress we saw in episode 1 of the show. I'm not sure where it is exactly. Somewhere here. Maybe it's more above the misty mountains side of things. Maybe here. Maybe it is later where the Bay of Forohel is. It could be north of that. Or it is inside the Bay of Forohel. Also a possibility. Some people believe that some people believe it's also sunk into the ocean. So it could be as north as it is. It's relatively far north though. And his second fortress, Angband, which probably people also have heard about, it's, I don't know, round about here. This is still where Beleriand is there. That is definitely sunk into the ocean. For that I need my other map. I don't know, somewhere here. Really hard to tell. These maps, this globe here is very imprecise map size-wise, but yeah. I must go and sleep tomorrow. It's a big day. Yeah, much fun with it, Priscilla. And I will also end the stream in a couple of minutes because, as said, I need to be a Den stream in a moment. Yeah, I hope. Glad you enjoyed the stream. Also need to get like a tea here because, yeah, drinking is good. But yeah, Isildur I liked in this episode a lot. He also his father talked to his horse. Also, he talks Sindarin to the horse. Again, not Quenya. So language of horses is Sindarin. Kind of interesting that he and his father connect a little bit in this situation. I found this pretty cool. To be honest, like, it works. It's not the most creative thing. It's not innovative storytelling. But at this point, we have a show that struggles a lot. So if I see at least some decent stuff like this, I'm happy with it. I lowered my expectations enough for that by this point, but still won't win the innovation prize in storytelling 2022 for sure. Is there anything we have not discussed in this episode? I feel like most stuff we should have. Like, Theo also was pretty decent in this episode, I have to say. Like, the acting stuff. Adar was a highlight for me. There was some strange inconsistency. I also liked the Arondir and Bronwyn scene. We briefly discussed what is written on the ring here. Like I said, there's Plin or something written on this. And it's the same as on his bracer. We discussed this as well. Oh, as one detail I need to explain in a minute. But yeah, Arondir and Bronwyn also work pretty well. The payoff of the stupid sword being a key I found very underwhelming, and said earlier that couldn't Adar just blow up the dam or just destroy the dam with his orcs? Why would he need the stupid key for that? It makes no sense for me still. It's a very weird thing. I like that they tried to destroy the key. That is definitely a detail I really enjoyed, that they at least tried to destroy it. You could ask, hey, you need to show a scene like this where they at least try to destroy stuff. And then, yeah, here, this is an interesting one. We talked about that maybe Numenor has no colonies yet. These are the mouths of Sirion. And this thing here, somebody found out what these letters mean. And this reads Pelargir. This is Pelargir. We also see a little place here. There's another one. Couldn't read that one yet. I would like to also look deeper into what is written on the other stuff here. Maybe we make another stream because I end early and we do the Chris Looks at Maps stream and we try to read all what is written here. But yeah, the map of Miriel was pretty awesome. And this reads literally Pelargir. I was really surprised by that because Pelargir is mentioned in the books, of course. Probably book readers know it. It's not really mentioned in the films. And it's a harbor city, very important. It is founded by the Faithful, interestingly, on Middle-earth in the Second Age. So it makes sense that it's there. But if this is very early Second Age, I'm kind of surprised it's there. But we will hopefully learn more about these details. I'm typing really fast, yeah. Yeah, the good parts. A few good parts there are. Yeah, I guess the plate mail is maybe a bit much to do the trick riding. I agree. That's probably the biggest problem. But, I mean, it's Galadriel. She is very powerful. And it's Elven Rope. It doesn't snap or whatever on the settle. Stuff like that. Poor horse seat as well. Like I said, Adar replaced Arondir's hammer. He broke the hilt. Very nice of him. Did he? I have to look deeper into this. But yeah, I have to be offline now, chat. So I run the credits really fast. And yeah, I have reached to end the stream, chat. I hope OBS is not crashing. If you like this, if you watch this as a VOD or as a stream viewer right now, feel free to press the like button and leave a comment. And that always helps this channel a lot. Maybe recommend me to other people. And if you want to see me more me talking like in literally a minute, don't tell me I have not the link. Chris, why am I so bad at this? I post the link in chat. There is where I will be next, and I hope I make it in time. Probably start a couple of minutes later, I feel. But yeah, I will be with Dan, Voice of Geekdom. Shoutouts to him. But as said, check my stuff, check maybe my review also on this channel. Leave a subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you enjoyed this stream. I think it was really fun today. And we will have a watch party later, tomorrow and Sunday, from my perspective. So, yeah, I think the screen is now done. Okay, awesome. I have to go now, chat. So, see you in a moment on Dan's channel.